Chapter 49. Young Master Zhou, I wonder why you are here. Elder Lu could be considered to be acquainted with Zhou Yi, so he hurriedly went up to him and asked with a smile. Sigh. The reputation of the ancestral master is too great. When Zhou Yi saw this situation, he felt somewhat helpless in his heart. He's so humble, how can I make a move on him? However, the mission to sweep through the six great sect had to be completed, so Zhou Yi could only bite the bullet. It's a good thing that the ancestral master didn't follow us. Otherwise, there would be no need to fight. The Spirit Void Paradise would definitely admit defeat immediately. Secretly rejoicing in his heart, Zhou Yi braced himself and said to Elder Lu, "Thanks to the teachings of the ancestral master, my cultivation has improved." The ancestral master had once said that the Spirit Void Paradise could be considered to have obtained the inheritance of the Tao scripture. Therefore, I wanted to come and spar with the disciples of the Spirit Void Paradise. I wonder if your sect can give me this opportunity? Huh! Elder Lu looked at Zhou Yi with his mouth agape. Tao scripture inheritance? The Tao scripture's introductory cultivation method was circulated throughout the world. Even if the Tao scripture was written by an Empyrean, why did he have to find us? You are a disciple of an Empyrean, who would dare to make a move against you. If I hurt you, the Empyrean would be unhappy, and my Spirit Void Paradise would not even exist. However, Zhou Yi had already come knocking on his door, so it would not make sense if he did not give an explanation. Let us discuss it for a while, how about it? Elder Lu could not make this decision. He excused himself from Zhou Yi and hurriedly returned to the sect to discuss this issue with Headmaster Li and the other elders. Everyone, we don't have to be too nervous. Headmaster Li quickly made a decision. Since we've already come knocking on our door, we definitely have to compete. Moreover, we don't have to worry too much. Since that person asked him to come here, he must have the intention of training him. As long as it's not fatal or crippling, a small injury will definitely be fine. That makes sense. The elders all nodded. Then let the disciples have a match with him. Headmaster Li made the decision, and everyone brought Zhou Yi into the Spirit Void Paradise. Arriving at the martial arts practice field of the Spirit Void Paradise, Headmaster Li and Elder Lu personally chatted with Zhou Yi, while the other elders hurriedly prepared for the next competition. Not long after, the disciples of the Spirit Void Paradise arrived. Yi Fan, do you think that's the Book of Changes? Pang Bo pointed at Zhou Yi, who was chatting happily with Headmaster Li on the stage, and said to Yi Fan, "It really is the Book of Changes." Fan Xian was surprised. Isn't he following the Supreme Tao Ancestor? What are you doing here? Who knows? Pang Bo shook his head indifferently. He looked up in the direction of Zhou Yi and said with some envy, "Having a backer is really different. Look, the sect leader is personally accompanying him and serving him like a lord. With someone at the top, it'll be easy to survive anywhere. Identity and background aren't the most important things in this world. The most important thing is still your own strength." Saying this, Yi Fan's heart was somewhat depressed. He had an unparalleled sacred body that had never been seen before, yet he was not suitable for cultivation. For more than a month, there was no movement from misery at all. They could not even enter the door. How could Yi Fan be happy about this? Don't worry, Yi. There's always a way out. You'll definitely have a chance. Seeing Yi Fan's expression, Pang Bo hurriedly comforted him. Disciples. At this time, Headmaster Li suddenly stood up and walked up to the main stage, saying to the people below the stage, "Disciples, today young Master Zhou of the Tao sect has come to visit. Young Master Zhou's cultivation is profound and his background is extraordinary. He is interested in exchanging pointers with the disciples of our Spirit Void Paradise." Saying that, Headmaster Li extended his hand and gestured towards Zhou Yi. Zhou Yi nodded his head, stepped forward, and cupped his fists towards everyone below the stage. "Spar?" Hearing the headmaster's words, all the disciples below the stage were stunned. Was it a spar? Or was it a challenge? All the disciples raised their heads and glanced at Zhou-Yi, their expressions somewhat unfriendly. Spar? Zhou-Yi wanted to spar with a spirit void disciple? How many days had it been? Just how much ability did he learn? Pang Bo's eyes widened, his face filled with disbelief. Yi Fan was also very surprised. It had only been a month, and Zhou-Yi was already able to spar with a spirit void disciple? The divine abilities of a Tao Father were truly something that one could only look up to. Disciples. Headmaster Li continued, this old man also feels that this is an opportunity to learn from each other and promote each other. Therefore, it is also a good thing for you to gather all the disciples here to observe and broaden your horizons. At this point, Headmaster Li waved his hand, and 10 streaks of light shot up, landing on the viewing platform. The light faded away, and the 10 spirit void disciples lined up in a row, appearing on the high platform. 10 prodigies of the spirit void realm. These are the top 10 of this year's sect competition. Seeing these 10 figures appear on the high platform, the disciples below the stage were in an uproar. The headmaster actually let the 10 prodigies of the spirit void realm spar with Zhou-Yi? Why use a sledgehammer to kill a chicken? There were also some steady disciples who felt that Zhou-Yi's cultivation was probably not weak. Otherwise, the headmaster wouldn't have sent the 10 prodigies of the spirit void realm out. Young Master Zhou, these are the most outstanding disciples of our spirit void paradise. They can all exchange pointers with young Master Zhou, please choose as you wish. Headmaster Li pointed to the 10 disciples standing beside him and said to Zhou-Yi with a smile. Thank you, Headmaster Li. The spirit void disciples are indeed extraordinary. Zhou-Yi cupped his hands towards Headmaster Li and then glanced at the 10 spirit void disciples beside him. He casually pointed to a disciple. I'll exchange pointers with this brother first. This guy's eyes are so sharp. He picked the weakest one at a glance. But do you think he's easy to bully because he's weak? You'll be in for a good show later. Headmaster Li had the intention of watching a good show in his heart, and a smile appeared on his face. Of course you can. Lin Han, exchange pointers with young Master Zhou. Yes. The disciple named Lin Han answered and leaped onto the battle arena. Headmaster Li, I'll exchange pointers with Brother Lin first. I'll take my leave for now. Zhou-Yi greeted Headmaster Li, and then with a tap of his foot, he also leaped onto the battle arena. On the arena, the two stood on opposite ends, facing each other. You picked me because you think I'm the weakest? Lin Han sneered. Among the 10 prodigies of the spirit void realm, my cultivation is indeed the lowest. But, if we weren't so familiar with each other, at least half of the 10 prodigies would not be my opponent. So, you chose the wrong person. Haha. Zhou-Yi chuckled. If I said I randomly picked you, would you believe me? Humph. Lin Han snorted heavily and didn't answer. A silver light appeared in his hand, and a 1-foot-long silver dagger appeared in his hand. Please. Please. As soon as his voice fell, the silver dagger in Lin Han's hand suddenly soared into the sky, turning into a dagger light that was more than 10 feet long out of thin air. As if splitting the sky and earth, it chopped down on Zhou-Yi's head. Good skill. Facing this dagger, Zhou-Yi praised. The dagger in his hand whistled and slashed towards the dagger light. Space-splitting blade. Senior Brother Lin used a big move right away. Even the elders can't easily resist this move. This person is so arrogant. He will definitely suffer a big loss. Chapter 50. What a space-rending blade. On the viewing platform, Headmaster Li and the group of elders saw Lin Han use this move and immediately nodded in praise. Lin Han's talent is extraordinary. He was born with an affinity for metal qi. If the ancient Tao of sword cultivation hadn't been cut off, he would probably be another peerless sword immortal. What a pity! The world has changed. Many cultivation paths that were once at the top of the world have fallen into decline. Headmaster Li sighed softly and turned to look at Elder Lu. Among the immortal seedlings that Elder Lu brought back last time, wasn't there an unprecedented, unparalleled holy physique? If it weren't for the fact that the world had changed, this saintly physique alone would be enough to make the void spirit cave heaven awe the world. What a pity! It is indeed a pity. Elder Wu Changfeng also sighed. That child Yi Fan's willpower is all top-notch. Unfortunately, he was a saintly being. Even a holy land can't support a saintly physique. How can my void spirit cave heaven afford to raise him? While the elders were discussing, changes had already taken place in the arena. Clang! The short sword in Zhou Yi's hand suddenly let out a shrill sword howl. A layer of water-like sword light appeared on the short sword as it slashed down towards Lin Han's Tenjiang long saber light. Pooh! A soft sound rang out. The Tenjiang long saber light was shattered by the sword. Lin Han cried out in pain and squatted down, holding his head. This space-rending blade condensed all of Lin Han's mind. After it was destroyed by Zhou Yi's sword, Lin Han's mind was injured and he had a splitting headache. How is this possible? Senior brother Lin's space-rending blade was broken so easily? What is the background of this Zhou guy? So strong? Taoism? What sect is this? Lin Han, who had high hopes, was instantly killed by Zhou Yi in one move. The disciples below the stage suddenly went into an uproar. They simply could not believe everything in front of them. Zhou Yi is actually so strong? Pang Bo opened his mouth wide and couldn't close it for a long time. He has already far surpassed us. Yi Fan was expressionless, but his heart was churning like a huge wave. They had the same background, the same history, but they had not seen each other for a short month. His former classmate was already high and mighty. How could Yi Fan's heart be calm? No. I can't go on like this. Fan Xian clenched his fists tightly, and had already made up his mind. On the viewing platform, when Headmaster Li and the elders saw this, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. Sword cultivator? There's actually a sword cultivation method that has been passed down to this day. The elders were quite frightened by Zhou Yi's sword. It was not that Zhou Yi's sword was very powerful, but the sudden appearance of a sword cultivator on this day when the Tao of sword cultivators was almost extinct shocked all the elders. Sect leader Li and Elder Lu looked at each other and understood, but they didn't dare to say it out loud. As an Empyrean's disciple, Zhou Yi knew a bit of sword cultivation. This was nothing at all. In the arena, a deacon hurried up the stage and helped Lin Han down. Zhou Yi had indeed exchanged for some sword cultivation techniques, and he had also consumed energy to cultivate a trace of sword energy. However, this level of cultivation was still very shallow. If Lin Han had not focused his mind on the saber light, he would not have been injured at all. Even now, although Lin Han's mind was damaged, as long as she calmed herself down, she would be able to recover in a few days. However, in the eyes of the disciples who did not know the truth, Zhou Yi was really too arrogant. Not only did he come knocking on our door, he even attacked so heavily. Was he looking down on our spirit void grotto heaven? If I don't teach you a lesson, how can I vent the anger in my heart? Sect leader, this disciple would like to seek advice from young Master Zhou, please allow it. The one who stepped forward was the head of the 10 prodigies Spirit Void Realm, who had broken through to the Sea Reincarnation Realm, and had just advanced to the Tao Palace. Seeing him step forward, the other 10 prodigies Spirit Void Realm, who were eager to give it a try, retreated. With eldest senior brother stepping forward, what else could the others say? You Tao? He wants to ask for a fight? Sect leader Li suddenly felt somewhat troubled. He was very clear about Yu Dao's thoughts and also knew Yu Dao's cultivation strength. However, he was worried about Zhou Yi. If Yu Dao did not control his strength, then it would be somewhat troublesome. Since this brother is interested, Sect leader Li, How about letting us exchange pointers? Just as sect leader Li was troubled, Zhou Yi spoke on the stage. All right. Sect leader Li nodded and thought to himself, it's good to let you learn a lesson, lest you think that there's no one in our spirit void grotto heaven. After getting the sect leader's consent, Yu Dao tapped his foot and his entire body was like a fallen leaf in the wind, flying and landing on the arena. Great! Senior brother Yu's autumn leaves dancing in the wind is really vivid. Seeing eldest senior brother Yu Dao's graceful bearing on the stage, the disciples below the stage immediately cheered loudly. This was not only to encourage eldest senior brother, but also to put pressure on Zhou Yi. This move, Autumn Leaves Dance in the Wind, was indeed extraordinary. Rising with the wind without a trace, it's not shallow at all. On the viewing platform, an elder nodded and praised. Yu Dao's talent is indeed extraordinary to be able to cultivate this autumn leaves dancing in the wind to this realm, when he has just entered the Dao Palace realm. In the arena, seeing Yu Dao's posture, Zhou Yi could not help but laugh. Such a showy posture looked very deserving of a beating. What are you laughing at? Is my autumn leaves dancing in the wind movement technique wrong? Yu Dao looked at Zhou Yi and frowned. No. It's a very beautiful movement technique. Zhou Yi also felt that his behavior was frivolous and hurriedly smoothed things over. Beautiful. Hearing this word, Yu Dao raised his eyebrows and a wave of anger rose in his heart. He no longer talked nonsense and directly issued a challenge. Please! After he finished speaking, Yu Dao's figure swayed, and he waved his hand to scatter a brilliance. For a moment, the autumn wind was bleak and the fallen leaves drifted. Countless fallen leaves floated in the entire arena. These fallen leaves drifted with the wind as if the autumn wind was blowing and the fallen leaves were drifting. It did not seem to have the slightest bit of smoke and fire, nor did it seem to have any lethality. However, each leaf was as sharp as a blade. With just a thought, any leaf could be turned into a fierce, killing move. This was Yu Dao's killing move, endless falling leaves rustling. Once caught in the attack, one would face the attacks of countless fallen leaves at all times. It was endless and impossible to guard against. As soon as this move was used, the entire martial arts practice field suddenly fell silent. Senior brother Yu Dao actually has such a killing move? So senior brother has never used his true strength? All the disciples were shocked. At the same time, they were very confident in Yu Dao's victory. It's really beautiful. Seeing the fallen leaves drifting down and feeling the dense killing intent contained in them, Zhou Yi was not moved at all. He just praised the beautiful scene of this move. You will soon know that it's not just beautiful. Yu Dao sneered, and his spiritual power shook. Countless fallen leaves flew through the air with a swish. One strike is enough to defeat the enemy and win. With so many tricks, the power is instead scattered. Zhou Yi shook his head. His whole body shook, and a brilliant divine brilliance lit up. A vast scene appeared beside Zhou Yi. In the boundless ocean, a bright moon slowly rose. The brilliant brilliance illuminated the entire sky. All the fallen leaves that flew to Zhou Yi's side were instantly crushed in this brilliance. In the boundless moonlight, Zhou Yi gently pressed down his palm. A huge handprint came crashing down from the sky. Puff! The scene of endless fallen leaves instantly shattered, and Yu Dao spat out a mouthful of blood and flew out backward. See rising bright moon. Divine body phenomenon. Great void handprint. Isn't his surname Zhou? How? Everyone on the viewing platform jumped up in shock. Chapter 51. Young Master Zhou's cultivation is indeed outstanding. Since Yu Dao had been defeated, this exchange, which was called a spar but was actually a challenge, could only come to an end. Sect leader Li hurriedly welcomed Zhou Yi. This person's background was too great to be provoked. It was better to send this plague away as soon as possible. Although sect leader Li was very uncomfortable in his heart, he could only smile and admit his inferiority. Your Majesty, the Spirit Void Grotto Heaven has admitted defeat, and the first step of the initial mission is completed. The voice of the Spirit of the Heavenly Book sounded in his mind. Zhou-Yi breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly left as sect leader Li wished. Very good. Li Yu yawned and sat up from the bed. 1/6 of the mission has been completed. Kid Zhou, hurry up and sweep the other 5 sect. I'm getting impatient from waiting. With a thought, Li Yu instructed the Spirit of the Heavenly Book to continue to issue missions, urging Zhou-Yi to rush all the way to the next cultivation sect. Wait, I actually forgot to set the mission reward? Li Yu suddenly realized that when he set the mission for Zhou-Yi, he did not consider the mission reward at all. Without a reward, how can there be a motivation to complete the mission? This reward must be there. Li Yu intended to make up for it, but what should I reward him with? It has to be attractive and not expensive, then it can only be cultivation method manuals. Among all the resource information scanned by the system, only cultivation method and knowledge resources were relatively cheap to produce and attractive enough. In that case, I'll give Zhou-Yi a cultivation method. Li Yu thought for a while and suddenly had an idea. The surname Zhou comes from the Ji family, and he can be considered a descendant of the great emperor. Moreover, he has exchanged for the great void handprint, so I'll just give him the void scripture. Time passed day by day. Zhou-Yi's battle record was also getting more and more glorious. After defeating the Spirit Void Grotto Heaven, Zhou-Yi came to the Mist Grotto Heaven. The Mist Grotto Heaven had been greatly harmed by Li Yu, so how could they dare to provoke Zhou-Yi? He randomly found a disciple and admitted defeat after a few rounds. After the Mist Grotto Heaven was Purple Sun, and after Purple Sun was Jade Tripod. The subsequent challenges were also real battles. Although no one dared to kill, they didn't hold back in the slightest. Zhou-Yi challenged all the way and swept all the way. His cultivation became more profound, and his combat experience became more and more skilled. At the same time, his name became more and more resounding. A month later, Zhou-Yi finally completed the task of sweeping the 6 major sects. He was already famous in the Yen country. Your Majesty, the initial quest for the path to the great emperor has been completed. Hearing the hint from the Spirit of the Heavenly Book, Zhou-Yi let out a long sigh. Your Majesty, it's because you're a descendant of a great emperor and possess a divine body. The system has automatically matched the Void Imperial Sutra as the reward. Mission reward? Void Imperial Sutra? Hearing this, Zhou-Yi was ecstatic. At first, he was wondering why there was no reward for the system's mission. It turned out that the rewards would only be given out after all the missions were completed. Moreover, the rewards that were given out were simply too satisfying. The Void Imperial Sutra was a great emperor's Tao-proving scripture. It required tens of millions of energy points to exchange for it. It was not something he could obtain in a short time. Now, the initial mission had actually given him this classic that was completely in line with his identity. How considerate was this? At this moment, Zhou-Yi was very satisfied with the highest heavenly book system. Well, he didn't know that the cost price of this kind of knowledge exchange with Li Yu was only a mere 10 points. For the system, creating physical objects consumed a huge amount of energy, but creating knowledge without a physical body consumed almost negligible energy. When Li Yu set the price, he made the knowledge exchange refer to the energy required to create weapons of the same level, and then doubled it. Weapons of the same level as the Imperial Sutra were imperial weapons. The energy required to create an imperial weapon was doubled again. This price was no longer something that could be described by a black-hearted merchant. Zhou-Yi's mission is completed. When Li Yu received this news, he couldn't help but laugh. Now there's only one last thing left, and that is to get the Bronze Immortal Palace. System, connect to the highest heavenly book and let the Spirit of the Heavenly Book issue a mission. The second step of the path to the Great Emperor, the Imperial Weapon Mission, guide him to the bronze immortal palace. When the spirit of the heavenly book received Li Yu's order, it immediately took action. Your Majesty, you have taken the first step of the path to the great emperor. Next, the second step of the mission will be activated. Oh? What's the second step of the mission? Zhou Yi had just received a huge reward and was looking forward to the second step of the mission. The second step of the path to the great emperor, the imperial weapon mission. To become a great emperor, how can one not have an imperial weapon? An imperial weapon that has followed the great emperor all the way is the great emperor's Tao-confirming treasure. It's very important. Imperial weapon? Zhou Yi thought of the powerful treasures in the exchange system, and his heart suddenly became hot. That's right. The imperial weapon was not only the great emperor's personal weapon, but also the testimony of the great emperor's Tao-confirming treasure. To become a great emperor, how can one not have an imperial weapon? Accept the imperial weapon mission. Thinking of this, Zhou Yi quickly accepted this mission. The imperial weapon mission is activated. Your Majesty, please follow the instructions to find the bronze immortal palace and collect the heaven and earth chi in the immortal palace as an imperial weapon material. Heaven and earth chi? When Zhou Yi heard this very familiar name, he was surprised and happy. Heaven and earth chi. Didn't the legendary founder have a heaven and earth exquisite heaven and earth mysterious yellow pagoda? It was said that that treasure was refined with heaven and earth chi. If I collect the Xian Wang Qi, will I be able to create a supreme treasure like the patriarchs? Are there any clues about the bronze immortal palace? Where is it exactly? Zhou Yi anxiously asked the spirit of the heavenly book. The bronze immortal palace is wandering under the earth, and its specific location cannot be determined. However, according to the system's speculation, the bronze immortal palace will soon appear near the Supreme Mystery Sect. Supreme Mystery Sect. During this period of time, Zhou Yi had been fighting all over the place and had some understanding of the Supreme Mystery Sect. This was a behemoth. Fortunately, there was no need to clash with the Supreme Mystery Sect on this trip, so Zhou Yi was not worried. In that case, I will inform the founder and go to the vicinity of the Supreme Mystery Sect to investigate. Zhou Yi turned around and planned to return to the volcanic ruins. Of course, Li Yu didn't want Zhou Yi to delay time by going back and forth. He quickly asked the system to create a virtual image and appeared beside Zhou Yi. Founder? Just as Zhou Yi was about to fly away, he suddenly saw Li Yu's figure appear beside him and quickly stopped. Founder, this disciple has already defeated. I saw it all. You did well. Li Yu nodded in appreciation. The virtual image was like a real person. His every move was no different from a real person. Founder, this disciple wants to go out. I ask for the founder's permission. You should go out and explore. Li Yu smiled and nodded. Your foundation is solid now. It's time to meet the heroes of the world. Zhou Yi, after this, I will also be leaving. In the future, you will have to walk your own path. Founder, although he knew that Li Yu was going to leave, Zhou Yi didn't expect this day to come so soon. He suddenly felt a little reluctant in his heart. All good things must come to an end. Besides, it's not like we won't have a chance to meet in the future. Li Yu smiled and waved his hand. Although my real body is not here, it's not difficult for me to meet you with my avatar. Why do you have to do this? Yes. Zhou Yi suddenly remembered that when he called the founder for help in the past, didn't the founder immediately manifest an avatar? The founder had great magical powers. How difficult was it for him to manifest an avatar to meet him? Founder, this disciple will leave now. Zhou Yi and Li Yu bowed and saluted, then they flew in the direction of the Supreme Mystery Sect. I hope this trip will go smoothly. Li Yu looked at Zhou Yi's departing figure and exhaled softly. Chapter 52. Your Majesty, according to the system's measurement, The bronze immortal palace is nearby. Zhou-Yi had just come out of a cliff when he suddenly heard the prompt from the spirit of the heavenly book. Zhou-Yi was pleasantly surprised. After spending several days wandering around here, he had no clue at all. Now, he finally found clues of the bronze immortal palace, which made Zhou-Yi heave a sigh of relief. Following the direction indicated by the spirit of the heavenly book, Zhou-Yi searched all the way. After a while, Zhou-Yi stopped in front of a clear spring in front of a hill. It's under this? Zhou-Yi looked at the clear spring and frowned slightly. If it was really here, then he could only dig a hole to enter. Your Majesty, through this spring, you can enter an underground Yin River. Follow the Yin River and you will reach the bronze immortal palace about 10 miles or so. If that's the case, then I can only dig a hole. Zhou-Yi waved his hand and took out a short sword. Traces of sword qi lingered endlessly and pierced into the spring like lightning. The sword qi whistled and in a moment, a big hole was opened in the spring. The cold water of the underground Yin River rolled out. Zhou-Yi's whole body erupted with divine light as he plunged into the hole and dived into the underground Yin River. He followed the cold Yin River downstream. Whoosh! With the sound of water, Zhou-Yi came to a vast underground lake. The brilliant divine brilliance blooming all over his body turned into a light shield, isolating the lake water. Zhou-Yi fell to the bottom of the lake. With the help of the divine brilliance, he saw the magnificent bronze palace in front of him. I finally found it. Zhou-Yi looked at the bronze palace in front of him with a fervent light in his eyes. Is this the bronze immortal palace? His moving footsteps quickened a little as Zhou-Yi rushed all the way to the bronze immortal palace. The water flow brought by the rapid passage rolled up a vortex behind him. Suddenly Zhou-Yi saw a figure flash by his side from the corner of his eye. Who is it? Zhou-Yi was shocked and turned to look at the place where the figure appeared and disappeared. He held the short sword and was on guard. This is... When Zhou-Yi saw it clearly, he found that it was a floating corpse in the water. So it's just a floating corpse. Zhou-Yi breathed a sigh of relief, but he was secretly vigilant in his heart. The fact that there were corpses meant that this place was not a good place. It was better to be careful. Zhou-Yi continued to move forward carefully. Along the way, he saw more and more floating corpses. Zhou-Yi became more and more vigilant. They slowly walked to the front of the bronze immortal palace. Surprisingly, nothing unexpected happened along the way. Who? Zhou-Yi let out a long breath and raised his head to look at the bronze immortal palace in front of him. He faintly felt an inexplicable aura coming from the immortal palace, which made his heart palpitate. There's actually no danger along the way? Li Yu was originally worried that something would happen. He had been paying attention to Zhou-Yi's situation, but he never expected that Zhou-Yi wouldn't encounter any danger when he reached the bronze immortal temple. In the original work, when the bronze immortal palace was born, there were so many casualties and blood flowed like a river. Li Yu sighed and suddenly thought of the root of the problem. In the original work, so many people died because they entered the bronze immortal palace. Inside the bronze immortal palace, be it the chaos qi, the yin-yang qi, or the door of profundity, they all contained boundless killing intent. If it wasn't for Yi Fan. Wait. Li Yu's face suddenly turned pale. This thing has an owner. The original owner was still alive. If I were to take the bronze immortal palace, would I be slapped to death? Just as Li Yu was feeling uneasy, Zhou-Yi had already made his move. Spirit of the heavenly book, what should we do next? Zhou-Yi looked at the bronze immortal palace in front of him and asked the spirit of the heavenly book in his heart. When Li Yu saw this situation, he immediately made a decision. Spirit of the heavenly book, let him collect the black and yellow qi first. After receiving Li Yu's instructions, the spirit of the heavenly book hurriedly guided Zhou-Yi and slowly approached the surface of the lake. The surface of the lake above seemed to be shrouded in a layer of dark clouds. As Zhou-Yi continued to get closer, a huge pressure assaulted his face. The heavy pressure was like a heavy mountain pressing down on his head. Zhou-Yi let out a muffled groan. His entire body flashed with divine light, and his bones kept making ka-ka sounds. There's actually so much pressure? Zhou-Yi held on with all his might, panting heavily. This pressure was like the surrounding gravity that suddenly increased by dozens or hundreds of times. Zhou-Yi felt that if he continued to move forward, he would definitely be smashed to pieces. Spirit of the Heavenly Book, how can I collect the black and yellow qi? Do you still want to continue to get closer? Zhou-Yi looked up at the dark clouds shrouding above, and the corner of his mouth twitched. Your Majesty, the distance now is enough to collect the black and yellow qi. However, it will take some time to complete the collection. Your Majesty, please hold on. Quickly collect it. Why are you still talking nonsense? Zhou-Yi was trembling from the huge pressure. He sweated profusely and couldn't help but reprimand the spirit of the heavenly book. Start collecting. Li Yu also issued the same order. An invisible wave of energy swept across the area. Zhou-Yi only felt that a huge vortex suddenly appeared in the dark clouds above his head. The dark clouds around him kept rolling into the vortex and disappeared. Is this collecting the black and yellow qi? Very good. Collect more. Collect more. I can still hold on. Seeing the scene above his head, Zhou-Yi thought that he could use the black and yellow qi to refine an emperor weapon in the future, and his whole body became excited. Can you still hold on? Li Yu chuckled. Even if you can't hold on, you have to hold on. How can I stop before collecting all the black and yellow qi? System, increase the speed of collecting the black and yellow qi. Spirit of the Heavenly Book, if Zhou-Yi can't hold on, let him exchange for the divine spring to repair his body. In terms of quantity, you can give him more so that he can hold on a little longer. Following Li Yu's order, the system collected the black and yellow qi even faster. Looking at the rapidly increasing black and yellow qi in the resource warehouse, Li Yu nodded with satisfaction. Through the system connection, I can expand the resource collection function for the Heavenly Book of the highest Heavenly Book. I can easily collect the black and yellow qi. It's not much different from collecting it personally. However, it's much safer and easier for me. Li Yu smiled and nodded. It seems that there won't be many opportunities to roll up my sleeves and go into battle in the future. The black and yellow qi in the resource warehouse continued to increase, and Li Yu smiled very happily. Spirit of the Heavenly Book, how much longer will it take? Zhou-Yi had already drunk the divine spring more than 10 times. If it weren't for the divine spring to repair his body, Zhou-Yi's whole body would have been broken. Your Majesty, please hold on for a little longer. It will be done soon. Hurry up. Zhou-Yi's whole body was in so much pain that he was almost numb, but he still gritted his teeth and held on. As time passed, more and more black and yellow qi was collected, and the pressure on Zhou-Yi gradually became lighter. In the end, Zhou-Yi's whole body trembled. He only felt comfortable all over and no longer felt the pressure. Your Majesty, the collection of black and yellow qi is complete. It's done? Haha, that's great. Hearing the words of the Spirit of the Heavenly Book, Zhou-Yi's heart was relieved, and he couldn't help but laugh out loud. Chapter 53. Crack, crack, crack. A dull and deep roar sounded from Zhou-Yi's body. Brilliant divine brilliance bloomed from Zhou-Yi's body, illuminating the dark underground space. Good. The pressure just now made my divine body grow by a level. Zhou-Yi felt the vigorous vitality in his body and the surging power in his body. He nodded with a smile. Congratulations, Your Majesty. The Spirit of the Heavenly Book congratulated appropriately. Zhou-Yi was in high spirits, but Li Yu was frowning. Should I take it or not? Should I take it or not? Li Yu's face was as bitter as a bitter gourd, and a handful of his hair was pulled off. The bronze immortal palace. This thing was really coveted. How could a person like Li Yu, who liked to take advantage of others, be willing to not take such a big advantage? If he didn't get it, it would be like digging out his heart. If he took this thing, the consequences would be unpredictable. Although Vicious had severed her own primordial spirit and split it into two, but regardless of whether she had reached the immortal level or not, even if she only had the power of the great emperor, how could Li Yu, a fake who could only scare people, stop a real great emperor? He would definitely be slapped to death. If I take the bronze immortal palace and return immediately, is it feasible? Li Yu still had the mentality of a loser, and he couldn't wait to move all the good things to his home. At this moment, his wishful thinking prevailed. Risking my life over my wealth. Let's go all out. Li Yu immediately gave the spirit of the heavenly book an order, instructing Zhou Yi to take the bronze immortal palace. When Zhou Yi walked near the bronze immortal palace, Li Yu gave the order to take it. The bronze immortal palace was even larger than the demon emperor's tomb. In order to take it, Li Yu specially spent 2,000 points of energy to open a larger recycling channel. Buzz, a huge black hole instantly enveloped the bronze immortal palace. In the blink of an eye, the bronze immortal palace disappeared. So easy? Seeing the bronze immortal palace appear in the resource warehouse, Li Yu was dumbfounded. I was so scared that I almost peed my pants. It turned out to be so easy? This is really… Li Yu shook his head. He felt that he was being too careful. The bronze immortal palace is mine. That's great. After dispelling the worries in his heart, Li Yu finally relaxed and laughed heartily. Just as the laughter left his throat, it got stuck. Li Yu was startled by the sudden appearance of a small figure at the door. It was a little girl. Her clothes were very old and her face was full of stains. She looked like a little beggar in the slums. However, her eyes were very clear and bright, faintly flickering with a multicolored radiance. Just this pair of eyes was enough to make people overlook the tattered clothes, the stains on the face, and everything else. In those eyes, one could clearly feel the purity and nobility that came from the soul. Her name was Little Nan Nan. She was a divine infant. Other than that, she also had a name that shook both ancient and modern times: Vicious. Not only was she ruthless to others, she was even more ruthless to herself. She was unyielding and unyielding. She was not arrogant or discouraged. Step by step, she was determined and persistent. She moved forward, forward, forward again. Therefore, as an ordinary person, she stepped onto the peak of the world. Seeing this person and thinking about her experience, Li Yu felt as if thunder had exploded in his heart, waking him up. Ever since he came to this world, he had been doing whatever he wanted. He had indeed become arrogant and a little complacent. This mentality was not right. Now that he had met an opponent that was beyond his imagination, he was afraid. This mentality was also not right. So what if she was a Dharch? He would use up all his energy, the Green Lotus Emperor weapon, the heart of the demon god, and the bronze immortal palace. Even if he could not defeat her, he would still give her a hard time. Li Yu took a deep breath and calmed down. I didn't know that the Dharch was coming. Sorry for not welcoming you. Li Yu adjusted his mentality and nodded at Little Nan Nan with a smile. You do know me. Little Nan Nan said expressionlessly. Her young voice revealed a depth and vicissitudes that did not match her age. Li Yu smiled and did not answer. Little Nan Nan did not care whether Li Yu answered or not. Instead, she continued, when I was in the forbidden area of the remote antiquity, I heard you say something to me. You said that the person I was waiting for had returned. At this point, Little Nan Nan raised her head and looked at Li Yu. Now, I'm here to ask you for an answer. Is he really back? Li Yu was stunned. Originally, he thought that Little Nan Nan had come to him because he had instructed Zhou Yi to take away the bronze immortal palace. He did not expect it to be because of this. In an instant, Li Yu understood what was going on. What was the most important thing to Vicious? It was not to become an immortal, but to wait for his return in the mortal world. What was the Bronze Immortal Palace? What was becoming an immortal? The purpose of Vicious cultivation had never been to become an immortal. She just wanted to live and wait for that person to return. Li Yu suddenly felt a little sour in his nose and took a deep breath. Have you seen him? Li Yu did not answer little Nanan's question directly. Instead, he asked her a question. I've seen him. Little Nanan reached out and took out an oiled paper bag. She gently opened it, revealing a few steaming soup buns. Looking at these buns, little Nanan's eyes turned red. Then, do you think he's the person you're waiting for? Li Yu looked at little Nanan and asked softly. I don't know either. Little Nanan slowly shook her head, wrapped the buns carefully, put them away, and looked up at Li Yu. Since you've said that, I'm not going to let you go. You must know something. So, I want an answer from you. Little Nanan's face was still expressionless, but Li Yu knew very well that under the calm surface, there must be monstrous waves and turbulent undercurrents. If you can give me an answer. You took my elixir of immortality and my bronze immortal palace, I can overlook it. Is that so? Li Yu nodded and looked at little Nanan with a smile. He knew what little Nanan meant. If he could not give a satisfactory answer, then she would definitely make a fuss. With your cultivation, you must have gone back in time and looked into the past. You must be very clear about the ins and outs of the matter. At this point, Li Yu pointed at a wild flower outside the window. There are no two flowers that are exactly the same in this world. But you've already found the same flower. Isn't the answer obvious? But he doesn't have the memories of the past. Little Nanan replied hesitantly. Is this very important? In the past, that person was your brother. Now this person can also be your brother. Li Yu smiled. The soup buns are delicious, eat them while they're hot. After you're done, ask your brother to buy more for you. Ask my brother to buy more for me? Little Nanan hesitated for a moment, then took out the bag of soup buns again and gently opened it. She slowly reached out and picked up one, then put it into her mouth and gently bit into it. The warm soup flowed into her mouth, and the fresh taste seeped into her tongue. So delicious! Little Nanan's eyes glistened with tears as she took a big bite of the soup buns and said, So delicious! Thank you! Little Nanan raised her head and looked at Li Yu. She smiled. Her smile was like a flower. You're welcome. Li Yu secretly heaved a sigh of relief. It would be best if they didn't fight. Actually, Li Yu also knew that Vicious wasn't really here to ask for an answer. She already had an answer. She was only here to find someone to agree with. Then, I'll go ask my brother for soup buns. Goodbye. Little Nanan giggled, like a little girl who went to ask her brother for candy. Goodbye. Li Yu waved his hand and watched as little Nanan turned into light and disappeared in front of him. Yi Fan, although I stole a lot of things from you, giving you an extremely powerful little sister can be considered as settling the karma. Leaf. Chapter 54. Little Nanan left. Li Yu began to deal with the aftermath and prepare for his return. The first thing he had to deal with was Zhou Yi's so-called Emperor weapon. After collecting the Qi of heaven and earth, in addition to the credit of collecting the Bronze Immortal Palace, Li Yu couldn't treat Zhou Yi too badly. He had to give Zhou Yi a sip of soup. Spirit of the Heavenly Book, prepare to refine a weapon embryo for Zhou Yi. After Li Yu gave the order, the Spirit of the Heavenly Book immediately communicated with Zhou Yi. Your Majesty, you have obtained the Qi of heaven and earth, and with the help of the energy of the Bronze Immortal Palace, I can refine a supreme treasure for you. Your Majesty, please design a weapon that suits your heart. Great! Hearing this news, Zhou Yi was overjoyed and began to think about what his weapon should look like. In our tradition, the artifacts that represent the identity of the great emperor are the 9 cauldrons, the Xianyuan sword, and the Imperial Jade Seal. Which one should I choose? The Imperial Jade Seal is eliminated first. Qin Shi Huang's items are just too weak. The 9 cauldrons are 9 great cauldrons. There are too many. It's already a blessing to successfully refine one Emperor weapon. 9 is simply unimaginable. If I only take one cauldron, it will lose the meaning of the 9 cauldrons. What about the Xianyuan sword? The sword of the Holy Path, the sword of the Sovereign Path. Moreover, the word Xianyuan is very compatible with my origin. It seems that the Xianyuan sword is very suitable? Thinking of this, Zhou Yi had already made a decision in his heart. Spirit of the Heavenly Book, my emperor weapon will be the Xianyuan sword. He imagined the appearance of the Xianyuan sword in his mind, and let the spirit of the Heavenly Book simulate a Xianyuan sword. A thick and simple long sword with a length of 3 feet and 3 inches appeared. One side of the sword was engraved with the sun, moon, and stars, and the other side was engraved with mountains, rivers, and plants. One side of the hilt was engraved with the techniques of farming and animal husbandry, and the other side was engraved with the strategy of unifying the 4 seas. It was vast, simple, ancient, and heavy. Seeing this sword, Zhou Yi seemed to feel the excitement of cutting through thorns, purifying the universe, and the firmness of an unswerving determination. Everything came down to one word: Holy Path. This is the weapon used by my ancestors in the legend. The inheritance of the torch flame would never end. Now let this legendary sword regain its glory in my hands. I shall wield this sword to cleanse the universe and cleanse the universe. With his blood boiling in his heart, Zhou Yi was so excited that his whole body trembled slightly. We pledge our lives to follow you. The spirit of the Heavenly Book knelt down in front of Zhou Yi. Very good. Zhou Yi laughed and instructed the spirit of the Heavenly Book, refine according to this style. Yes. The spirit of the Heavenly Book replied without hesitation. However, only Li Yu had the authority to make this decision. Xianyuan sword? Zhou Yi, this brat, is quite ambitious. Li Yu nodded. Fine. Since you're so determined, I'll help you. System: break down the green copper fragment of the immortal cauldron and fuse it with the Xian Wang Qi to forge a Xianyuan sword for Zhou Yi. Following Li Yu's command, the system reacted instantly. The green copper melted, and the black and yellow qi fused together, forming a 3-foot-long sword. Seeing the Xianyuan sword, which was exactly the same as the legend, Li Yu nodded with a smile. Zhou Yi, the ancestor has treated you well. With the immortal cauldron fragment and the Xian Wang Qi, the essence of your Xianyuan sword is no weaker than an emperor weapon. Although it's only a sword embryo now, as long as you continue to refine it, you can definitely refine it into a real emperor weapon. Li Yu sighed and waved his hand. The Xianyuan sword in the resource warehouse was instantly transferred to the Heavenly Book of the highest Heavenly Book. Your Majesty, I have fulfilled my mission. The spirit of the Heavenly Book immediately handed over the Xianyuan sword. Good. 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 Zhou Yi took out the Xianyuan sword and held it in his hand. He reached out and stroked the blade. Feeling the vast power contained in the sword, Zhou Yi's heart was at ease. Zhou Yi's matter is almost done. Li Yu nodded. With a thought, Li Yu asked the system to create a virtual projection and appeared beside Zhou Yi. Ancestor. Seeing Li Yu appear, Zhou Yi hurriedly came up to pay his respects. Not bad. Not bad. Li Yu glanced at the Xianyuan sword in Zhou Yi's hand and nodded. The emperor weapon has just been formed. As long as you grow and continue to refine it, this sword will definitely become an emperor weapon. Zhou Yi, the fledgling has to leave the nest in the end before it can spread its wings and fly high. The ancestor is leaving. You will have to rely on yourself in the future. Ancestor. Zhou Yi raised his eyes to look at Li Yu, still a little reluctant in his heart. There's no need for that. Li Yu smiled and continued, I came here this time to say goodbye to you. Since you have chosen your own path, you must walk it unswervingly. Yes. Zhou bowed and accepted the order. All right. Let's part ways here. Li Yu waved his hand and his figure instantly disappeared. Ancestor is still leaving? Zhou looked in the direction where Li Yu disappeared and stood there in a daze for a while. The road is under my own feet. After the baby learns to walk, the adult will let go of his hand and let him move forward by himself. Even if he stumbles, he will eventually walk with his head held high. Ancestor, I won't let you down. Zhou held the hilt of the sword in his hand tightly. Spirit of the heavenly book, let's go. Is it finally time to leave? In the hall under the volcano, Li Yu looked up at the sky. The sky was vast, and the clouds in the sky were rolling. Seeing this vast sky and the beautiful scenery around, Li Yu suddenly felt a little reluctant in his heart. Is there still something in my heart? Li Yu turned his head to look in the direction of Mist Grotto Heaven. The figure of a little girl lingered in Li Yu's mind. I'd better go and say goodbye. That pair of eyes that were as clear as moonlight appeared in his mind again. Cute little Ting Ting. Big brother is here to see you. The escape light soared into the sky and went straight into the clouds. Not long after, Li Yu's figure landed in the town. What happened? His figure appeared in the town. The place where Li Yu appeared was the former Li family courtyard. Ever since Li Yu destroyed the Li family, he handed little Ting Ting and old man Jiang to the people of Mist Grotto Heaven to take care of. In Li Yu's opinion, this must be foolproof. Old man Jiang and little Ting Ting didn't have any life and death enemies. Moreover, with the people of Mist Grotto Heaven looking after them, they would definitely be able to live peacefully until they were found by the Jiang family. However, the scene in front of him made Li Yu frown tightly, and an ominous feeling arose in his heart. What happened? Li Yu pushed open the door in confusion and walked into the Li family courtyard. Who is it? The sound of the door being pushed open alarmed the people in the courtyard. With a burst of sound, several figures rushed out in an instant. Judging from the movements of these people, they were obviously cultivators. Celestial Venerable. Among the figures that rushed out, the beautiful girl in the lead was Lin Jia. Lin Jia couldn't help but scream when she saw Li Yu's appearance clearly. This place. Li Yu glanced at Lin Jia expressionlessly, pointed at the white banners hanging high in the air, and asked Lin Jia, "What happened here?" This place. Lin Jia's face turned pale, and she knelt on the ground with a plop. This disciple did not do a good job. Please forgive me, Celestial Venerable. So something really happened? Li Yu took a deep breath and his face turned cold. Book Group 419,574,189. Chapter 55. Take me in. Li Yu waved at Lin Jia and walked into the yard. Yes. Lin Jia hurriedly got up and led Li Yu into the back hall. There was a morning hall in the back hall. A black coffin was placed in the morning hall. Dressed in morning clothes, little Ting Ting knelt down in the morning hall, sobbing. She picked up paper money and threw it into the brazier in front of her. The cultivators of the Mist Cave Heaven stood aside with bitter faces and sighed. It's over. It's over. Why would something like this happen? An old man cried and lamented. I failed the task given to me by the Celestial Venerable. Does the heavens really want to destroy my Haze lineage? If the Celestial Venerable comes back, how can I explain it? I'm already here. Li Yu appeared in front of the morning hall and looked coldly at the crowd. What's going on? Ah, Celestial Venerable? When the cultivators of Mist Cave Heaven saw Li Yu, their faces turned pale and they knelt on the ground. Celestial Venerable, please forgive us. Celestial Venerable, please forgive us. Big brother, little Ting Ting looked up and saw Li Yu. Tears rolled down her face. She ran over and hugged Li Yu. Big brother, Grandpa. Grandpa is dead. Little Ting Ting, be good. Don't cry. Don't cry. Liu bent down and picked up the little girl. He turned to the people of Mist Cave Heaven who were kowtowing and apologizing. What's going on? Celestial Venerable. The elder of Mist Cave Heaven looked at Liu with a bitter face. Celestial Venerable, I didn't do my job well and deserve to die. It's just that this is really an unexpected disaster. Celestial Venerable, since your order, I've been waiting in the mansion with my disciple, Lin Jia, to protect the Jiang family at all times. These days have been very normal. Old Master Jiang's hotel and inn have reopened. The day before yesterday, Old Master Jiang went to the hotel to deal with some matters, but unexpectedly. Speaking of this, the old man's expression was miserable. Unexpectedly, there was a battle between two cultivators the day before yesterday. The two of them chased each other all the way to the sky above the small town. When I saw this, I hurriedly went forward to stop them, but I was still a step too late. When the two of them were fighting, one of their spirit weapons shattered and smashed into the restaurant. Old Man Jiang happened to be in the restaurant, so I didn't even have the time to save him. In a fit of anger, I killed the two cultivators who were fighting. However, it was already too late to reverse the situation. This lowly one has let down Empyrean's life and deserves 10,000 deaths for my crime. It's actually like this. When Liu heard this, he was instantly dumbfounded. Old Man Jiang died just like that? Why did he die in such a baffling manner? This was simply, the affairs of the world were truly unpredictable. Life is full of surprises. This was a real world. Anything could happen. Not everything was set in stone. The accident that happened to Old Man Jiang was shocking. However, in this world where cultivators ran amok, there were always cultivators who would start a fight at the slightest disagreement. It was not uncommon for people to be accidentally injured. Old Man Jiang was definitely not the first, nor would he be the last. The only difference was that this person was familiar with Liu. That was all. Liu already did not know what to say. Liu lowered his head and looked at the crying little Ting Ting. Seeing this heartbroken little girl, Liu couldn't help but feel a bit of compassion. Little Ting Ting, what should we do? Liu reached out to wipe away the tears on little Ting Ting's face and gently hugged her in his arms. He really could not bear to let this 5 to 6-year-old little girl live alone in this small town. System, can I bring people back with me? Liu asked the system. The user can bring any item or living being back. However, according to the energy level of the item or living being, the energy consumption will be different. Can I bring them back? Liu nodded. Although little Ting Ting had a tiny body, she did not cultivate. She was just an ordinary person, so it would not consume much energy. Moreover, consuming a little energy was much better than letting this lonely little girl live alone in this world. Little Ting Ting, are you willing to go with Big Brother? Liu lowered his head to look at the little girl curled up in his arms, and asked softly. Yes. Little Ting Ting nodded. Big Brother, little Ting Ting is very obedient. I will comb your hair every day. Good. Liu smiled and nodded. He raised his eyes to look at the cultivators of the Mist Grotto Heaven. This was really an accident. You can't be blamed for it. Since you have taken care of Old Man Jiang's funeral, this matter will end here. Thank you for your magnanimity, Celestial Venerable. Seeing that Liu did not vent his anger on them, the cultivators of the Mist Grotto Heaven heaved a sigh of relief. Next, Liu and the others took care of Old Man Jiang's funeral. No one cared about worldly possessions such as family wealth, so they dealt with it casually. Little Ting Ting, come with Big Brother. After everything was settled, Liu pulled little Ting Ting out of the courtyard. With a flash of light, Liu brought Shouting Ting and sword into the sky. This little girl is really lucky. The cultivators of the Mist Grotto Heaven looked up at the soaring light with envy. No matter how pitiful her background was, she was extremely lucky to be able to follow a celestial venerable. The light whistled through the sky. After a while, Li Yu and little Ting Ting appeared in front of the main hall under the volcano. Big brother, is this your home? Little Ting Ting stretched her head and looked around. She was very curious about this hall. Oh no! Li Yu shook his head and looked at little Ting Ting with a smile. My home is still far away. Do you want to go back with me? Yes. Little Ting Ting nodded and a smile appeared on her face. Well, then let's go home. Li Yu held little Ting Ting's hand and walked into the main hall. He looked around and smiled. It's only been a few months since I came to this world, but everything has changed dramatically. Before I came, I was still weak, but now I'm far above everyone else. Before I came, I was still alone, but now… Li Yu looked down at little Ting Ting beside him, and a bright smile appeared on his face. System, return. System notification. Please return items containing powerful energy to the resource warehouse. Otherwise, a large amount of energy will be consumed during the transmission. Oh, I really forgot about that. Li Yu smiled and shook his head. There was not much energy left in the system, and he had to bring little Ting Ting along. Naturally, he could not waste it. Okay. Li Yu sighed helplessly. Little Ting Ting, Big Brother will change his clothes before we go. He took off his golden crown, white robe, jade belt, soul-shaking bell, and changed his boot. Now, Li Yu had returned to the green-robed appearance he had when he first arrived. The only difference was, he was no longer alone. Then, let's return. An invisible wave trembled slightly, and Li Yu and little Ting Ting disappeared in an instant. P.S. Book Group 419,574,189. Chapter 56. You're back already? A faint light flashed, and Li Yu's figure appeared, holding a little girl's hand behind him. Looking up at the familiar dormitory, Li Yu felt like he was in a dream. He inexplicably transmigrated to this world, and then inexplicably became a system supplier, selling systems all over the universe, playing the role of an expert. In just a few months, he felt that the changes were too big and too fast. Brother, is this your home? Little Ting Ting looked curiously at the dormitory in front of her and turned to ask Li Yu. Here. Li Yu glanced around the dormitory and shook his head slightly. This is also not Brother's home. Then, where is Brother's home? Little Ting Ting blinked her eyes, as if she was surprised. Brother's home. Hearing this question, Li Yu's heart flashed with a trace of sadness. My home. I don't know if I'll have the chance to go back in this life. My home is where my heart is at ease. Since I'm here, I'll make the best of it. Now is not the time to be emotional. Li Yu shook his head, held little Ting Ting's hand, and sat down in the dormitory. The most important thing now is to find a place to settle down. Li Yu looked at little Ting Ting and made up his mind. It's not suitable for little Ting Ting to show her face for the time being. I have to find a suitable reason first. Therefore, I need a safe place to settle little Ting Ting down. System, after the store space is opened, can I bring people in? After the store space is opened, it will be completely under the user's control. The user can give anyone the right to enter and exit at will. Is that so? Li Yu nodded. He planned to open up the store space and let little Ting Ting stay there for a few days. System, using the floating island's terrain as a model, open up the store space. Order received, store space opening. Boom. Vaguely, Li Yu seemed to hear an earth-shattering sound, but when he listened carefully, there was no sound at all. After this loud sound, a star appeared in Li Yu's mind. A bright light bloomed on the star, as if it was the dawn that pierced through the darkness, dazzling the eyes. A strange connection was born in Li Yu's mind. Following this connection, Li Yu's mind moved, and his consciousness instantly reached the star. This is the mall space? When his consciousness landed on the star, a space formed by 9 floating islands instantly appeared in Li Yu's mind. 9 floating islands were suspended in the air. A waterfall flowed down like a waterfall, flowing around the 9 floating islands. Celestial clouds swirled around, beautiful trees grew verdant, and the 9 floating islands were magnificent, like a paradise. Li Yu's consciousness flowed through the entire space. It was as if he had carved a mark into it. This space was now marked with Li Yu's mark. In the blink of an eye, the entire space was under his control. Li Yu immediately knew how to control this space. The space has been opened. We can go in and take a look. Seeing this space, Li Yu was very satisfied. He turned to Little Tingting, who was sitting next to him, and said with a smile, "Little Tingting, Big Brother will take you to a very beautiful place to play. Do you want to come?" Little Tingting nodded and said seriously, "I'll go wherever Big Brother goes." "Then let's go." Li Yu reached out and pulled Little Tingting's hand. He secretly said in his mind, "In the name of the system's supplier, in the name of the mall space's controller, I grant the person in front of me the authority to enter the mall space." Order received. Authority input complete. Enter the mall space. Li Yu moved his mind and brought Little Tingting into the mall space. Wow! It's so beautiful! Little Tingting looked at the celestial clouds swirling around, the waterfall flowing around, the verdant forest, and the plains blooming with flowers. She immediately cried out in surprise. Letting go of Li Yu's hand, Little Tingting bounced around the flowers. Her hands kept plucking flowers, smiling very happily. This was the main island of the 9 floating islands. It was also the largest floating island at the top. The floating island had a radius of about 4 kilometers. It wasn't very big, but there were mountains, rivers, forests, and springs. The environment was very beautiful. The environment is not bad. Li Yu looked around and secretly nodded. However, this is only a piece of wilderness. If I want people to live here, I still need to start the construction of the mall. System, with my current resources, start the construction of the mall. User, please choose the mall's architectural template or a custom template. The system showed various architectural templates in Li Yu's mind. There were shrines, sacred halls, demon palaces, immortal mansions, and dozens of different architectural templates. Choose the Immortal Mansion template. Looking at these architectural templates, Li Yu felt that the Immortal Mansion template was more in line with his aesthetic standard. As for the custom template, Li Yu knew that he didn't know anything about architectural design. Instead of making something that didn't look like anything, he might as well use the ready-made one. Template confirmed. User, please add architectural resources. Architectural resources? Using the Bronze Immortal Palace as the main building resource and the 5-colored Divine Jade Palace in the Tomb of the Qing Di as the decorative resource. First, build the Immortal Mansion main building. Resources confirmed. Meets construction standards. Beginning construction of the main building of the System Mall. The Bronze Immortal Palace and 5-colored Divine Jade Palace in the resource warehouse instantly disintegrated. Then, in Li Yu's mind, an exquisite building with heavy eaves and hanging arches appeared. The construction of the main building of the System Mall is completed. User, please specify the construction location. Construction location. Li Yu raised his head and looked around. Then, he smiled and shook his head. The main building of the mall was about 1 square kilometer. What else was there to choose? Little Tingting, come here for a moment. Li Yu waved at Little Tingting, who was happily picking wild flowers, and called her back. He was going to build an immortal mansion later. In order to avoid any accidents, it was better to bring Little Tingting with him. Hey! I'm coming! I'm coming! Little Tingting answered. Holding a bouquet of bright flowers, she skipped over. Big Brother, look, I picked so many beautiful flowers. So beautiful. Li Yu smiled and nodded. Then, he pulled Little Tingting to his side. Tingting, didn't you ask where Big Brother's home is? This is Big Brother's home. Big Brother will build a beautiful big house here. We'll live here in the future, okay? Okay. Okay. That's great. Little Tingting jumped up in joy. Okay. Then, just watch, Big Brother will build a big house for you. Liu smiled and pointed. Choose the center of the floating island and begin construction. A slight buzzing sound was heard. Then, endless light bloomed in the center of the floating island. Amidst the colorful light, a beautiful building complex rose from the ground. Palaces and pavilions covered each other. Waterside pavilions and terraces intersected with each other. Long corridors extended and decorated with gardens. It was a magnificent sight. Big Brother, this is our home? Little Ting stared at the building in front of her, dumbfounded. She blinked her eyes in disbelief. This is our home. Liu smiled and pulled Little Ting toward the entrance of the immortal mansion. Chapter 57. Holding Little Ting hand, he walked around the newly built immortal abode. Liu was very satisfied with this building. Little Ting frowned because she felt that the house was too big. The immortal abode was beautifully constructed, and all kinds of functional buildings were also very complete. The only drawback was that the house was still empty, and the garden was just some ordinary plants. But this was not a problem. In the colorful hall of the Azure Thearch's tomb, there were all kinds of daily items. System: take out all the daily items in the Azure Thearch's tomb and place them in the immortal abode. With a light wave of his hand, all kinds of tools instantly appeared in the empty room. Embroidered curtains in front of the windows, long velvet carpets on the floor, exquisite tables, sparkling jade wares, all kinds of tools appeared in every room. Wow! There are actually so many resources in the Azure Thearch's tomb? Liu exclaimed. With these things, the immortal abode could be lived in. Little Ting wouldn't have any problems living here. Little Ting, Big Brother will give you some fun things. Liu waved his hand and threw out a pile of toys, all kinds of plush bears, all kinds of dolls, and piled them up. Wow, so cute! Little Ting cheered and squeezed into the pile of toys. Ting, play at home for a while. Big Brother has something to do and has to go out for a while. I'll be back soon. Okay, Big Brother. Ting is very obedient. Little Ting hugged a white bear toy and waved at Liu. Liu smiled and turned to leave the room. Little Ting has settled down for now. Now I have to deal with my own matters. After transmigrating to this world, Liu was taken in by Steward Een and settled down in Kangwu Academy. Although he had not been registered, he was still a servant. In this kind of situation, Liu's aspirations were already very high. How could he still work as an odd-job worker for others? Therefore, the problem of his identity had to be solved immediately. With a thought, Liu planned to leave the immortal abode. Just as he was about to teleport out, Liu suddenly realized that there were many places he could teleport to. After living in this world for a few months, any place that Liu had been to could be used as a teleportation point. You can actually do this? Liu was pleasantly surprised. According to this situation, as long as he had been to a place before, he would be able to reach it. Wasn't this similar to stepping on a teleportation point in some games? As long as he took the time to make a trip in the future, he wouldn't have to walk anywhere in the future. Teleport. Liu chose a foothold and instantly left the mall. In the blink of an eye, Liu's figure appeared in the dormitory of the chores yard. Although the dormitory in the chores yard was simple, it was still a single dormitory. Before the teleportation, Liu had already confirmed through the system that there were no outsiders in the dormitory, so he was not afraid of being seen. The moonlight outside the window was like water. Looking at the moonlight, Liu thought of a very important question. That was time. In the previous world, he had spent a few months pretending to be Grand Supreme Tao Ancestor to deceive the Zhou-Yi. Now that he had returned, how would this time be calculated? How much time had passed? System: from the time I left to the time I returned, how much time had passed in this world? A total of 6 hours and 2 quarters, 6 hours and 30 minutes. 6 hours? 1 month is equivalent to 2 hours? According to this ratio, 24 hours is 12 months. A day in heaven is a year on earth? Coming up with this very familiar ratio, Liu chuckled, looked at the moonlight outside the window, and thought, when I left, it was afternoon, and after 6 hours, it is already night. After transmigrating to this world, he became a system supplier and went to another world to sell the system. What happened during this period of time made Liu feel a bit unreal, as if he was dreaming. Moving his hands and feet, feeling the majestic power in his body, Liu couldn't help but laugh. After going out for a stroll, he gained a top-notch physique, obtained countless resources, and even brought back a little lowly. The harvest of this trip was really too rich. When I was building the immortal residence just now, I actually forgot to deal with these things. Looking at the Bodhi seed, the immortal sword Heavenly Lake, and the teal lotus emperor weapon, Liu suddenly remembered that the system had said that these things were environmental resources. When he was building the immortal residence just now, he forgot to deal with them together. I really need to change my habit of doing things without a plan and acting on whatever I think of. Liu smiled bitterly and shook his head. Ever since I got the teal lotus emperor weapon, I haven't even touched it. Since I didn't deal with it, let's take it out and see. Thinking of this, Liu waved his hand and took out the teal lotus emperor weapon. Indeed it is. Looking at the sparkling and translucent teal lotus in his hand, Liu was full of praise. However, the system's sudden sharp alarm interrupted Liu's mood of admiring the teal lotus emperor weapon. Warning! Warning! If an item of too high energy level appears in this world, it will cause interference from the power of the world. Interference from the power of the world? What does that mean? Liu was stunned. He lowered his head and looked at the teal lotus emperor weapon in his hand. He was confused. It was understandable that the energy level was too high. After all, it was an emperor weapon that could destroy heaven and earth. Its energy level must be high. But what was interference from the power of the world? How did it interfere? The system gave him the answer immediately. According to the user's understanding, the interference from the power of the world can be called heavenly tribulation. What the hell? Heavenly tribulation? Liu trembled. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He quickly ran out of the room and looked up at the sky. Boom! Thunder rumbled and pitch-black clouds gathered in an instant, covering the moon and the starry sky. In an instant, the entire sky was as dark as ink. There was no light at all. Only the thunder rumbled and the occasional flash of lightning could be seen. What the hell? I'm in big trouble now. Liu's face turned pale. He quickly asked the system, if I keep the teal lotus emperor weapon now, will the heavenly tribulation disappear? If I return to the store, will I be able to avoid the heavenly tribulation? Warning! The heavenly tribulation has locked onto the target. Keeping the emperor weapon will not remove the heavenly tribulation. Warning! When the user enters the store, it will cause the power of the world to attack the store, causing the store to be destroyed. That means I can't avoid the heavenly tribulation this time? Liu looked up at the lightning in the sky. Looking at the heavenly tribulation that was gathering, he gritted his teeth. Isn't it just a heavenly tribulation? The heavenly tribulation caused by the emperor weapon must only target the power of the emperor weapon. I don't believe I can't survive it. With the immortal mansion built from the immortal grade bronze immortal palace and the immortal grade invisible immortal fire in the fire domain, Liu was very confident. Warning! When the user uses immortal grade power, it will cause the heavenly tribulation to increase in strength. Damn! Liu's face fell. Am I going to be struck by lightning if I pretend to be real? Chapter 58. Hurry up and leave this place. Liu hurriedly drew out a strand of the Azure Lotus Emperor weapon's power and took a step forward, traversing thousands of mountains and rivers. He arrived at a mountain range 1,000 miles away from the Kangwoo Academy. Of course I have to find a place where no one is around. Liu turned his head and looked around before nodding his head secretly. He definitely couldn't undergo the tribulation in the Kangwoo Academy. Although he didn't know what the rules of this world's tribulation were. What if it was similar to the tribulation in the previous world? The consequences of Liu undergoing the tribulation in the Kangwoo Academy would definitely be death and injury. A certain someone in the previous world loved to play this trick on his enemies. Every time he used this trick, the land would be littered with corpses. If the tribulation in this world was similar to the one in the previous world, then, if Liu went to the Kangwoo Academy to undergo the tribulation, the entire Kangwoo Academy would probably be flattened by the Emperor weapon level tribulation, right? Manager Een and Een Lua wouldn't be spared either, right? Therefore, Liu definitely had to leave the Kangwoo Academy. After finding a suitable place, Liu began to make preparations. The tribulation above his head was still brewing. Amidst the rolling lightning, an enormous aura suppressed the heavens and the earth. Damn it! I was careless, and I actually caused such a huge problem. I'm afraid I'll have to pay for it this time. Liu cursed in his heart and hurriedly changed into all his equipment. He put on the saint-grade white robe again. Although the white robe, which was essentially made from the scales of the alligator ancestor, was probably not much stronger than a piece of paper under the Emperor weapon level tribulation. However, at this moment, every bit of strength he could gain counted. Liu couldn't care less. He held the Soulbuster bell in his hand and glanced at it before throwing it back in. Although it was extremely powerful, it was also very targeted. It was only effective against the soul, and was completely useless against the tribulation. The dozen or so saint-grade equipment in the Azure Thearcha's tomb were all offensive weapons. None of them were defensive, so they were completely useless. After hurriedly changing his equipment, Liu looked down at the Azure Lotus Emperor weapon in his hand, and clenched his fist tightly. Azure Lotus, you're the Emperor's true form. The Azure Thearch has dominated the world all his life. I'm sure you're not inferior. Boom. Rumble. The sound of thunder in the sky became louder and louder. The heavy sound of thunder contained endless power, as if everything in the world was trembling under this sound of thunder. At this time, everyone in the world noticed this unusual phenomenon. People from different races, different countries, and different forces were all very concerned about this sudden phenomenon. In the various cultivation holy lands, countless people craned their necks and looked up at the sky. Their expressions were both shocked and envious. Heaven's might is awe-inspiring, and all living things submit. The lightning was like an ocean, and the will of heaven was like a blade. Which great Grandmaster ascended to the supreme realm? An old man in a Confucian robe looked up at the sky with some surprise on his face. The heavenly lightning hasn't struck yet, so we can't tell where the person is. Hopefully, it wasn't a variant demon. Otherwise, the human race will be in an even more difficult situation. The old man heaved a long sigh and looked up at the sky without saying anything for a long time. Supreme tribulation? Someone else ascended to the Supreme Grandmaster realm? In a shabby Taoist temple, a sloppy old Taoist grabbed a chicken leg and gnawed on it. He stretched out his oily hand and wiped it on his clothes a few times before grabbing a wine gourd and taking a big gulp. I hope it's not a variant demon. Otherwise, this old Taoist will have to go back and join forces with Old Sour to stabilize the situation. It's actually a supreme tribulation. Buddha is merciful. A skinny old monk opened his turbid eyes in the Buddhist hall that was filled with incense. I didn't expect that a supreme grandmaster would ascend to the Tao today. The old monk looked up at the sky. There was no sadness or joy on his miserable face, but the bitterness seemed to be a little heavier. A supreme grandmaster is actually going through a tribulation? In a magnificent hall, A middle-aged man in an imperial robe looked up at the sky. In his demonic purple eyes, colorful halos flowed rapidly, and monstrous demonic chi shook the surroundings. Boom! Rumble! Thunder rumbled and lightning flashed. After a period of preparation, the heavenly tribulation had accumulated enough energy and was about to descend. It's about to come? Liu looked up at the tribulation lightning gathering in the sky and took a deep breath. He raised the Green Lotus Emperor weapon in front of him. Green Lotus, let us witness the heavenly tribulation of this world. A dazzling spiritual light shot into the sky. Liu rushed into the sky with the Green Lotus Emperor weapon in his hand. Green Lotus, you've followed the Lotus Emperor to conquer the world, but you've never fought against the heavenly tribulation of this world. Today, let us use this battle to announce your arrival to this world. Ding! A clear and melodious sound rang out, and a dazzling radiance bloomed. The Green Lotus in his hand floated up and released endless radiance. In the blink of an eye, the Green Lotus Emperor weapon transformed into a huge lotus that reached the heavens. A lotus in the blue sea and clear sky. At this moment, the peerless weapon from another world displayed its peerless elegance as it stood proudly between heaven and earth, announcing its arrival to the world. This is a green lotus? The old Confucian scholar frowned. The aura is so unfamiliar. Who is this person? That direction. Kangwu Academy? Could this person be a member of our Confucian sect? Who in the Confucian sect has attained the Tao through lotus? The old Confucian scholar pondered, but inwardly heaved a sigh of relief. A green lotus with extraordinary Tao. Is this a member of our Taoism? But why would he appear in Kangwu Academy, a place of Confucianism? The sloppy Taoist priest took a swig of wine, shook his head, and exhaled. Forget it. Forget it. As long as he's a human. Merciful Buddha. When he saw the green lotus blotting out the sky, the old monk's bitter expression became even more bitter. A green lotus? It seems to carry a trace of our heavenly Yao's aura? But why would it appear in Kangwu Mountain? In the Grand Hall, the Yao Emperor frowned and remained silent for a long time. Boom! The heavenly tribulation that had been brewing for a long time finally arrived. With an earth-shattering boom, a dazzling bolt of lightning shot up and crashed down on Liu. Is it coming? When he heard the thunder and saw the lightning, Liu's heart tightened. He shouted, "Rise!" As soon as he finished speaking, the huge lotus flower shook violently. The petals instantly closed and tightly wrapped around Liu, who was standing in the middle of the stamen. The huge green lotus flower turned into a flower bud. Boom! An earth-shattering boom rang out. Lightning crashed down, carrying with it the might of heaven and earth and the power to destroy everything as it slammed into the green lotus. The sound was deafening, shaking heaven and earth. It was as if the earth itself had been uprooted. Boom! Sitting in the lotus core, Liu felt his surroundings shake violently. It was as if the world had been turned upside down and the earth was shaking. Damn it! The heavenly tribulation is this powerful? If this continues, even if the Green Lotus Imperial weapon can withstand it, the tremors will kill me. Chapter 59. Luckily, I still have the elixir of immortality and the divine spring. Liu looked at the elixir of immortality and the divine spring in the storehouse and heaved a sigh of relief. With these things I should be able to get through it, right? Boom! A huge explosion sounded again as if heaven and earth were falling apart. The entire world trembled from the explosion. Everything in the world went silent at this moment. Someone is transcending the tribulation? And he's transcending the tribulation near our Green Parasol Mountain? Everyone in Green Parasol Academy was alarmed, and many students ran out of their rooms while shouting. They looked up at the sky, at the huge green lotus that stood proudly in the sky, and at the monstrous thunderstorm that descended from the sky. The group of students shouted excitedly. Supreme Tribulation, This is a supreme tribulation. In Green Parasol Academy, a few old scholars stood on the rooftop and looked into the distance with shock in their hearts. Which great Grandmaster has ascended to the realm of Supreme Grandmaster? That green lotus is very unfamiliar. Have you heard of anyone who achieved the Tao with a green lotus? The mountain elder of Green Parasol Academy, Old Man Chinmyu, frowned in thought as he turned to ask the others around him. Never heard of it. Everyone shook their heads. Who is this person? Why is he transcending the tribulation near our Green Parasol Mountain? Could it be related to our Green Parasol Mountain? Which great Grandmaster of the Academy has broken through to the realm of Supreme Grandmaster? Mountain Elder Chinmyu stroked his beard and frowned in thought, but he couldn't figure it out at all. This person must have a close relationship with our Green Parasol Academy. It's a pity that I can't meet such an expert in front of me. What a pity! Chinmyu sighed, but there was a hint of anticipation in his words. As one of the 10 great Confucian sacred grounds, Green Parasol Academy had produced countless grandmasters and great grandmasters. However, until now, no one had attained the realm of Supreme Grandmaster. As the mountain elder of Green Parasol Academy, Chinmyu had heard countless rumors slandering Green Parasol Academy. He had heard countless rumors about how there were no Supreme Grandmasters and how the sacred grounds of Confucianism didn't live up to their name. Chinmyu wanted to argue, but he couldn't. He could only grit his teeth and swallow his anger. However, the current situation gave birth to some hope in Chinmyu's heart. Since this person was undergoing the tribulation near Kangwoo Academy, he definitely had a deep relationship with Kangwoo Academy. How important was a cultivator's tribulation? How could he be careless? The location of the tribulation had to be carefully selected to ensure that nothing would go wrong. Who would dare to go to someone else's territory to transcend the tribulation? What if someone was itching to attack and couldn't resist the urge to attack? Then, it might be a disaster of death. Therefore, he had chosen to transcend the tribulation in Dark Parasol because he was certain that no one in Dark Parasol would attack him. Only someone from Dark Parasol could be so confident. Yes, this person must have a close relationship with my Dark Parasol sect. Everyone on the rooftop nodded in agreement. If Li Yu knew what the members of Kangwoo Academy were thinking, then he would definitely burst into laughter. Unfortunately, he couldn't hear it. Moreover, even if he heard it, he wouldn't be able to laugh. The second bolt of lightning struck down, causing the Green Lotus Emperor weapon to tremble violently. The radiance on the Green Lotus petal dimmed significantly. Li Yu, who was in the middle of the lotus stamen, was directly shaken by this huge impact and spat out blood. Damn it! The heavenly tribulation is so powerful! He took out the divine spring and gulped down a mouthful. The rich vitality quickly healed the damage to his body. I can't go on like this. Li Yu furrowed his brows tightly. The current situation wasn't optimistic at all. With the system in hand, the power Li Yu could use was beyond imagination. It wasn't impossible for him to destroy the heavens and earth. But his own strength was still too weak. After exchanging for the innate saint body Tao fetus and the infinite scripture, Li Yu had already laid a solid foundation. However, Li Yu's cultivation time was still too short. A sea of rebirth realm cultivation was no different from an ant in front of a heavenly tribulation at the level of an emperor weapon. I can't just sit here and wait for death. If this continues, the Green Lotus Emperor weapon won't be able to hold out for long. After all, this is a heavenly tribulation targeting an emperor weapon. Li Yu frowned. All sorts of thoughts flashed through his mind, but he couldn't think of a suitable countermeasure. It wasn't that Li Yu didn't have any trump cards. The Immortal Grade Bronze Immortal Palace transformed into an Immortal Grade Immortal Residence and the Immortal Grade Invisible Immortal Fire. These were all things that Li Yu could use, and they were far more powerful than a Supreme Emperor. But He didn't dare to use them. The system had already warned him. Once he used the immortal grade power, the heavenly tribulation would be upgraded immediately. What was the concept of an immortal grade heavenly tribulation? The aftermath could shatter Liu directly. How could he go through a heavenly tribulation? I have to fight back. There will definitely be problems if I just defend. Liu took a deep breath and glanced at the heart of the demon god in the resource warehouse. He felt more confident. The heart of the demon god and the green lotus emperor weapon are originally one. Their powers must be very compatible. With the power of the heart of the demon god and the green lotus emperor weapon, it's not like I can't fight back. If that's the case, then let's fight. With a thought, the closed green lotus bloomed instantly. On the huge lotus pistol, Liu, who was dressed in white, stood in the wind. He faced the roaring thunder above him and raised his arm slightly. Bang! 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 The heart of the demon god was beating rapidly, and majestic power was channeled into the green lotus emperor weapon. Azure sea. Clear sky. A lotus. Liu roared to the sky. He raised his right arm and slashed at the rolling tribulation clouds in the sky. Boom! A beam of light that penetrated the heavens crashed into the rolling tribulation clouds in the sky like a pillar supporting the sky. A loud sound shook heaven and earth. This attack pierced through the tribulation clouds and created a huge hole in the dark cloud. Bright moonlight shone through the hole and lit up heaven and earth again. What a straightforward character! Everyone who saw this scene couldn't help but praise in their hearts. In the face of the heavenly tribulation, he didn't have the slightest fear. Instead, he fought back and attacked the heavenly tribulation directly. Such a person must be strong and upright. He would rather break than bend. However, Liu couldn't voice out his bitterness. This attack seemed to be extremely ferocious and powerful. However, it didn't cause much damage to the tribulation clouds. The clouds quickly gathered again, and the hole was closed. The moonlight covered the sky, and the entire world fell into darkness again. Warning! Warning! When the user uses his power, please try to conform to the rules of this world. The rules of this world? What are the rules? Liu roared at the system. Please refer to the rules of this world to deal with the heavenly tribulation. The more power you expose from the other world, the more serious the interference from the world will be. How would I know what the rules of this heavenly tribulation are? Liu was frustrated. Boom! The lightning gathered again, and the third tribulation lightning was about to strike. Ignoring the system's warning, Liu continued to extract the heart of the demon god to drive the green lotus emperor weapon. This isn't right. This isn't right. The heart of the demon god is the energy source of the lotus emperor's body. Why is it so weak when combined with the green lotus emperor weapon? Liu furrowed his brows tightly. The power that exploded just now seemed to be huge. In fact, Liu knew that the true power of the green lotus emperor weapon had yet to be displayed. If I can't fully utilize the power of the heart of the demon god and the green lotus emperor weapon, I definitely won't be able to survive this heavenly tribulation. What's the problem? After thinking for a while, Liu understood the reason. The world was no longer the same. The green lotus emperor weapon and the heart of the demon god were definitely not as compatible as before. Compatible? A thought suddenly flashed through Liu's mind. The system also reminded me to conform to the rules just now. Could that be the rules? Chapter 60. Manager Ian once said that a grandmaster must explain his Tao to heaven and earth before proving his Tao. Liu looked up at the sky and took a deep breath. The heavenly tribulation this time is caused by the Azure Lotus Emperor weapon. It's the rejection of this world towards foreign objects. However, if the Tao I explain matches the power of the Azure Lotus Emperor weapon and matches the rules of this world, Will the heavenly tribulation turn into a Tao-proving tribulation? Even if it doesn't, the process of using the power can also match the rules of this world. Perhaps this method can truly unleash the power of the Azure Lotus Emperor weapon and the heart of the demon god? Thinking of this, Liu made up his mind. Regardless of whether it would work or not, it was better than waiting for death. Boom! Rumble! Thunder rumbled in the sky, and the monstrous power shook the world. Facing the rumbling thunder, Liu stood with his head held high and recited a magnificent poem. The flowers of water and land, the lovable ones, are kept. The people of Jin love the chrysanthemum. The people of Tang love the peony. They love the lotus that grows from the mud without being stained. They are clear and rippling without being demonic. They are straight from the middle without being overgrown. They are fragrant and clear. They can be admired from afar and cannot be touched. The chrysanthemum is the recluse of flowers. The peony is the richness of flowers. The lotus is the gentleman of flowers. The love of the chrysanthemum is rarely heard of today. The love of the lotus, who is it? The love of the peony is suitable for everyone. This was Love Lotus after Liu revised Love Lotus. This world also had the Jin Nation and the Tang Nation. The Kangwu Academy that Liu was in belonged to the Chu Nation. The Chu Nation had many lakes and lotuses everywhere. This slightly modified love of the lotus was also in line with the reality of this world. At the beginning, Liu's recitation of the love of the lotus was completely covered by the thunder and couldn't be heard. When Liu recited it for the second time, the Azure Lotus Emperor weapon suddenly emitted a brilliant light. The heart of the demon god in the resource warehouse suddenly throbbed violently. Liu's heart stirred, and he hurriedly took out the heart of the demon god. As soon as he took it out, the heart of the demon god flew out of his hand and landed in the lotus stamen of the green lotus Tharch weapon. Clang! A booming sound like a great bell resounded in the sky, and an endless brilliance suddenly bloomed. Water, land, grass, and flowers amidst the brilliant light, Liu's recitation of the Ode to the Beloved Lotus underwent a wonderful change. As Liu chanted, the green lotus Tharch weapon and the heart of the demon Tharch vibrated, as if they were resonating. This article praising the pure and upright nature of the lotus seemed to have touched the hearts of the green lotus Emperor weapon and the demon emperor. Under Liu's chanting, the two resonated and erupted with an earth-shattering power. A ray of brilliant white light shot up from the stamen like a pillar that supported the heavens, standing between the heavens and the earth. Boom! The heavenly thunder struck again. The green lotus Tharch weapon and the heart of the demon Tharch resonated and erupted with a tyrannical power. When the heavenly thunder struck, the pillar of light remained motionless and didn't have any effect. Huh! Liu was slightly stunned. Even if it explodes with all its power, it shouldn't be this strong, right? It seems like the power of the heavenly tribulation has weakened? System notification. The article that the user is reciting conforms to the rules of this world. The heavenly tribulation has changed from the tribulation of wiping out foreign objects to the tribulation of proving the Tao in this world. It is indeed effective. Hearing the system notification, Liu was overjoyed. He didn't expect that the desperate attempt just now would actually be effective. Out of the mud, unstained with this unexpected surprise, Liu put in more effort in his recitation. As Liu recited, the green lotus emperor weapon and the heart of the demon Tharch resonated even more. The brilliant brilliance of the pillar of light lit up the entire sky. Even though the sky was covered by dark clouds, even though the sky was filled with thunder and lightning, and the light pillar was still standing tall and strong, the bright and clear light was still shining with persistence and determination. Pure and upright, fearless and unyielding. Boom! 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 The heavenly lightning struck again and again, and the thunderstorm that covered the sky and earth came crashing down. It seemed like it wanted to crush the pillar of light and annihilate the brilliance that was recklessly blooming. However, no matter how the thunderstorm raged, the pillar of light still stood strong. Noble character, upright and plain-spoken. Very good. Very good. Seeing the pillar of light that stood strong in the thunderstorm, the Confucian-robed old man who had been paying attention to this tribulation nodded and praised. The brilliance just now shone brightly and illuminated the world. It seems like this person has already made the oath of proving the Tao. I just don't know if his Tao will be recognized by the heavens and earth, and he will finally become a supreme master. At the same time, the slovenly Taoist priest who was gnawing on a drumstick looked up at the sky. He even forgot to gnaw on the drumstick in his hand. The skinny old monk in the temple hall also looked up at the sky without blinking. He didn't even recite his scripture. The demon arch in the hall held a wine bottle and remained silent. He was waiting for the final moment to arrive. The Kanwu Academy was silent. No one made a sound. They were all looking up at the sky. Everyone knew that the scene of the brilliance just now was because the person undergoing the tribulation had explained his Tao to the heavens and earth, and made the oath of proving the Tao. Now, it all depended on whether his oath of proving the Tao would be recognized by the heavens and earth. If he was recognized by the heavens and earth, the next 3 lightning tribulations would be a baptism. If he wasn't recognized by the heavens and earth, the next 3 lightning tribulations would be a death tribulation. At this moment, everyone in the world was paying attention and waiting. If another Supreme Master appeared in the human race, it would definitely change the situation of the world. With another Supreme Master overseeing the situation, the other kind demons wouldn't dare to act rashly. To the entire human race, this was a great thing. To the other kind demons, this wasn't a good thing at all. Therefore, Liyu's tribulation this time would definitely affect the hearts of billions of people in the world. In the various countries of the Middle Plains, whether it was the human race or the other kind, they were all waiting for the final result. Time slowly passed. The lightning was still rolling. The power of the tribulation lightning didn't increase or decrease. There was no change at all. What's going on? Everyone who was paying attention to this scene had doubts in their hearts. The oath of proving the Tao had been sworn. If the heavens and earth recognized the heavens and earth, the power of the lightning tribulation would plummet. If the heavens and earth didn't recognize the heavens and earth, the power of the lightning tribulation would increase dramatically. They had never seen a lightning tribulation that didn't increase or decrease. Could it be that this person's Tao proving is going to fail? All the humans who were watching this scene clenched their fists tightly, breaking out in cold sweat. The other kind demons, on the other hand, rejoiced in their hearts. The flowers of water, land, and vegetation, just when everyone was at a loss for what to do, a loud voice echoed between heaven and earth. This was the voice of a recital. The vast recital shook heaven and earth, and the voice reached the 9 heavens. It's done. It's done. It's done. Ha 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 ha. The heavens bless the human race. This is the sonorous voice of Tao proving. The heavens and earth recognized his Tao, and this is manifested in the world. Quickly write it down. This is the sonorous voice of a Supreme Master. Quickly write it down. Ha ha. As expected of someone from our Confucian sect. Good. Hearing this voice, all the human countries in the world were in an uproar. However, the other kind demons were momentarily speechless. Emerging from the mud without being stained, cleansing the water without being demonic. Lotus, the gentleman of flowers. The sonorous voice of Tao proving still resounded through the clouds. Chapter 61. Untainted by the Mud? Untainted by the mud? In the hall, the demon emperor angrily smashed the wine bottle in his hand to the ground and pointed at the radiance in the sky. You bastard! You clearly have the bloodline of a heavenly demon. You are my brother, my clansman. Why do you associate yourself with humans? Is the bloodline of my heavenly demon bloodline mud to you? You bastard! The demon emperor roared furiously. His demonic aura churned like a tsunami, scaring countless fiendish demons into silence. Ha 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 ha! What a good, untainted by the mud! When the Confucian-robed elder heard the sonorous voice, he immediately laughed out loud and could not contain his joy. Originally, I was wondering why there was a hint of demonic aura in this person's aura despite him being a Confucian cultivator. I never expected it to be like this. Having said that, the Confucian-robed elder let out a long sigh. Back then, fiendish demons wreaked havoc in the Central Plains, raping and pillaging. They tainted our human bloodline, causing thousands of babies to be born with impure bloodlines. They were looked down upon and caused countless tragedies. I never expected this person to have such a background. With a mutated bloodline, he was looked down upon and bullied. Yet, he remained noble and upright. In the end, he attained the supreme Tao of a grandmaster. It's truly commendable. Untainted by the mud. Indeed, untainted by the mud. With these words, all those who have suffered the pain of having impure bloodlines will finally be able to live their lives openly. The Confucian-robed elder laughed heartily. The green lotus is the symbol of our Taoism. I never expected this person to be able to comprehend a noble heart and upright nature. He is indeed extraordinary. The slovenly Taoist priest clapped and laughed. The lotus is a gentleman of flowers. He actually allowed him to attain the Tao of a gentleman with the green lotus. Good, good, good. This scene is worthy of a toast. The slovenly Taoist priest reached for the wine gourd and poured it into his mouth. There's no more wine? The slovenly Taoist priest's expression froze. He shook his head with a wry smile. Forget it. Sleep, sleep. With this person and Old Sour, the situation in the world is stable. I can also sleep in peace. Buddha is merciful. Such a person is actually a member of the Confucian sect. What a pity! In the temple hall, the skinny old monk sighed slightly, lowered his eyelids, and said no more. Everyone within Kangwu Academy cheered. On the high platform, Mountain Head Chin and the group of old Confucians were so happy that their faces turned red. After hearing this sonorous voice, I'm sure everyone has no more questions, right? He must be a senior grandmaster of my Kangwu Academy. Mountain Elder is right. That must be it. It must be so. Everyone nodded in agreement. Good. Today, my Dark Parasol Academy's founding Master Green Lotus has attained a supreme realm, and the sonorous voice of the Grand Tao has spread throughout the world. The ancestral master's Tao affirmation was a foregone conclusion. We will make preparations to welcome the return of the Patriarch. Yes, we'll do it immediately. Everyone accepted the order and left in high spirit. Once the sonorous voice of the great Tao rang out, the entire world shook. Liu was also shocked. I only pirated an article, and it actually caused such a big commotion? Liu had two motives for reciting the discourse of the beloved lotus. The first was to conform to the laws of this world when transcending the tribulation, and the second was to activate the power of the Green Lotus Emperor weapon and the heart of the Shifter Emperor God. In fact, he never thought it would have such a good effect. This was actually a stroke of luck, a coincidence. According to the laws of this world, he had to explain his Tao to the heavens and earth. The discourse of the beloved lotus matched the essence of the Green Lotus Emperor weapon and the heart of the Shifter Emperor God's power, and it also conformed to the laws of this world. There was no such thing as intelligence in the power of the world. As long as it conformed to the laws, it would naturally be included in the laws. The calamity of obliteration became the calamity of Tao attainment. The laws of this world were actually not mysterious. Two metal balls falling at the same time, and water flowing downwards, these were the laws of this world. If one insisted on water flowing downwards, It would definitely not conform to the laws of this world, and it would be interfered with by the power of the world. Of course, this interruption did not have to be a heavenly tribulation. It could also directly cripple the ability of water flowing downwards. Li Yu's discourse of the beloved lotus conformed to the laws of this world, and it changed from water flowing downwards to water flowing downwards. This way, it would not be interfered with by the power of the world. I'm finally going to make it through. Seeing that the thick thunderclouds above his head had dissipated significantly, Li Yu heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Boom, boom, boom. The last 3 lightning tribulations descended. The power of the lightning tribulations was obviously weakened. Under the protection of the Green Lotus Emperor weapon and the heart of the Shifter Emperor God, he passed through it very easily. Once the 9 lightning tribulations passed, the rolling thunderclouds quickly dissipated. In a moment, the smoke and clouds disappeared, and the bright moon lit up the sky once again. However, the indomitable green lotus bloomed brilliantly, and it shone brightly with the bright moon hanging high in the sky, competing with each other. Ding! Suddenly, there was an ethereal sound in the 9 heavens. Multicolored rays of light descended from the sky. Gorgeous flowers floated in the air and sprinkled down from the sky. Seeing the colorful rays of light descending, Li Yu was shocked. Just as he was about to use the Green Lotus Emperor weapon to block it, the system notification made Li Yu stop. System notification. This is the reward for proving one's Tao in this world. Bathing in the rays of light will be very beneficial to the user. Is this the reward for transcending the tribulations? Li Yu chuckled. It seems like this world is still very generous. Therefore, Li Yu stood still and allowed the rays of light to fall from the sky to cover his entire body. As the rays of light fell, it was like a cool spring cleansing Li Yu's entire body. In a trance, Li Yu felt that he was like a mirror that had been covered in dust for a long time. Under the cleansing of this clear spring, all the dust was washed away, and it bloomed with dazzling brilliance once again. System notification. The user has been baptized by the power of heaven and earth in this world. The user's special physique has been accepted by heaven and earth and integrated into the laws of this world. The Green Lotus Emperor weapon and the heart of the demon god have successfully transcended the tribulations. The Tao of the Green Lotus has been accepted by heaven and earth. The saint-level white robe has been baptized by the power of heaven and earth. I've been accepted by the world after being washed by the rays of light? System, quickly absorb the rays of light. After hearing the system notification, how could Li Yu not know that this was an excellent opportunity? He quickly instructed the system to collect the rays of light descending from the sky. An invisible wave swept across, and the system kept collecting the colorful rays of light descending from the sky. After a while, the rays of light dissipated. Drop a little more. So stingy. Li Yu pursed his lips unwillingly when he saw the rays of light dissipating. Fortunately, the system had collected a lot of rays of light, and it was enough for the time being. Roar! At this moment, an earth-shattering dragon roar could be heard from the far east. Roar! A loud tiger roar could be heard from the west. Then, a phoenix roar could be heard from the south, and a dragon roar could be heard from the north. The earth also let out a deep and heavy roar. Li Yu was taken aback and was somewhat baffled. The holy spirits of the 5 directions roar in unison, and the heavens congratulate you. Congratulations to Grandmaster Green Lotus for achieving the Supreme Tao. Congratulations to Grandmaster Green Lotus for achieving the Supreme Tao. In an instant, the world was shaken. Chapter 62. F***CK. We're in big trouble now. Even though he was still thousands of kilometers away from the Kangwu Academy, Li Yu could still hear the thunderous cheers coming from the academy. It's the Green Lotus Emperor weapon and the heart of the demon god that validated my Tao. It's not me at all. What kind of supreme grandmaster am I? Li Yu shook his head bitterly when he saw the streaks of light shooting out from the direction of the Kangwu Academy. I can't take this anymore. I have to leave. But, if I don't leave them with something to remember, I'm afraid this matter won't end. Li Yu's heart skipped a beat as he turned to look at the cliff behind him. He activated the Green Lotus Emperor weapon and released a beam of light that flattened the entire cliff like a mirror. The Green Lotus Emperor weapon in his hand trembled slightly as he carved the entire text of the Love Lotus that was recognized by the heavens and earth on the cliff. Then, he separated a part of the sonorous voice of the Great Tao from the Green Lotus Emperor weapon and merged it into the text. Li Yu nodded his head as he looked at the glistening words on the cliff. You should be able to explain yourself now, right? After doing all this, Li Yu hurriedly left and returned to the shop space in an instant. A moment later, Mountain Head Qin led a group of old scholars and descended to the bottom of the cliff. Where is he? Where did Ancestor Green Lotus go? Mountain Head Qin stretched his neck and looked around, but he couldn't see anyone at all. He was still here just a moment ago? Why did he suddenly disappear? Why did Ancestor Green Lotus avoid meeting us? What are we supposed to do? Mountain Head Qin's face was bitter as he wanted to cry. Mountain Head, Ancestor Green Lotus, has just validated his Tao. I'm afraid he needs to go into seclusion for a while to comprehend the great Tao and consolidate his cultivation. An old scholar consoled him. Yes. Mountain Head, look. Another old scholar pointed at the glistening cliff in front of them. Mountain Head, Ancestor didn't abandon us. He even left us his comprehension of the Tao. Yes. Everyone nodded in unison. Yes. Ancestor has just validated his Tao, so he definitely needs to comprehend the great Tao. We were too rash. Fortunately, Ancestral Master didn't take any blame and even left behind some insight. Mountain Chief Qin stroked his beard and nodded. He looked up at the cliff. Looking at the dazzling words and hearing the sonorous voice of the great Tao, Qin Shanzhong was shocked. This is the great Tao mantra? Is this the incantation of the great Tao that was born from the connection between man and heaven when the Patriarch was confirming his Tao? Patriarch has treated us so well. Even such a great Tao mantra was left here. The great Tao incantation is the foundation of a supreme Grandmaster's Tao. The Patriarch had split out a portion of his own foundation to benefit the younger generation. What a great debt of gratitude! Yes. From today onwards, this will be the sacred land of my Kangwu Academy. When the disciples cultivate here, they can bathe in the sound of the great Tao at all times. This is a great benefit. What a great fortune! Founding Ancestors' actions will bring boundless benefits to the disciples of my Kangwu Academy for generations to come. Seeing the scenery of the cliff, everyone was extremely excited and moved. Patriarch is so kind. We thank the Patriarch for his great kindness on behalf of the younger generation. Mountain Head Qin led the group of old Confucian scholars and respectfully kowtowed to the cliff. Li Yu didn't know that his casual actions would cause such a great impact. He returned to the shopping mall. Li Yu glanced at Little Tingting, who was rolling around in the pile of dolls, and smiled. He didn't disturb her. Let's continue with the construction. Only the main building of the shopping mall had been completed. There were still many things that hadn't been completed. Li Yu planned to take advantage of this opportunity to finish them all. Li Yu walked to the garden in the Immortal Estate and took out the Bodhi seed. System, how do I plant this? Li Yu still attached great importance to the Enlightenment Bodhi tree. If he could plant the Bodhi seed and grow a Bodhi tree, it would be a lifelong benefit to Li Yu. User, please specify the location to plant it. Location to plant it. Li Yu raised his head and glanced around. He chose a small hill in the garden. Li Yu walked to the side of the hill. Looking at the flowing stream and a quaint pavilion at the foot of the hill, Li Yu nodded. Location selected, plant it. Following Li Yu's command, The Bodhi seed in his hand flew up and landed on the hill. 1. With a slight vibration, a huge gust of wind rushed into the place where the Bodhi seed was planted. Within this gust of wind, there was a grayish chaotic aura, black and white yin and yang aura, as well as a thick and heavy black and yellow aura. Chaotic aura, yin and yang aura, and black and yellow aura are useful for planting the Bodhi tree? Liu blinked his eyes and was a little surprised when he saw the three auras converging. The chaotic aura represented the chaos at the beginning of the world. The yin and yang aura represented the transformation of yin and yang after the creation of the world. The black and yellow aura represented the heaviness of the earth and the vitality of all living things. Among the three, it was reasonable to use the black and yellow aura. However, he didn't know what to do with the other two. Well, let it be. Liu waved his hand and ignored it. After the bronze immortal palace transformed into an immortal mansion building, the chaotic aura and yin and yang aura were directly integrated into the space of the mall. The chaotic aura permeated the spatial boundary of the mall space, but he didn't know what it was for. The yin and yang aura spread throughout the space. The power of yin and yang evolution evolved into various changes in the space, such as weather changes, temperature changes, seasonal changes, and so on. Except for a little bit of the black and yellow aura given to Zhou Yi to forge the Xianyuan sword, the rest was integrated into the ground of the 9 floating islands, evolving the vitality of the earth. At this moment, the 3 auras gathered here, and a huge vitality was born. In the blink of an eye, a sparkling and translucent jade-like blue light was born. Emerald green branches and leaves bloomed from the soil, stretched out, and grew at an extremely fast speed visible to the naked eye. In less than a moment, a Bodhi tree that was 10 feet tall, 3 inches thick, and sparkling and translucent like jade appeared in front of Liu. The Bodhi tree overflowed with spiritual light, and a mysterious aura spread out. As the branches and leaves swayed, the clear sound was like the sonorous sound of heaven and earth. Liu only felt refreshed, and the light of wisdom kept blooming in his mind. As expected of the enlightenment Bodhi tree. Looking at such a wonderful Bodhi tree in front of him, Liu nodded and praised. It took a lot of the chaotic aura, the yin and yang aura, and the black and yellow aura in the bronze immortal palace to make the Bodhi tree sprout and grow. Seeing this effect, Liu felt that the consumption was worth it. The Bodhi tree is finished. What's left is the immortal sword Heavenly Lake and the teal lotus emperor weapon. Liu looked at the teal lotus emperor weapon in his hand, somewhat reluctant to part with it. It doesn't matter if the immortal sword Heavenly Lake turns into a lotus pond, but Liu raised the teal lotus emperor weapon in front of his eyes. This teal lotus emperor weapon, that has just passed the heavenly tribulation and successfully attained the Tao, has turned into a lotus in the lotus pond. Isn't it a bit of a waste of God's gift? Chapter 63. System: If I use the green lotus emperor weapon as a lotus seed, can I still use its power? The green lotus emperor weapon had already passed the heavenly tribulation and was accepted by this world. The next time he used the green lotus emperor weapon's power, he wouldn't have to worry about the heavenly tribulation. Liu didn't want to waste this kind of power. The store is the user's foundation. Everything in the store is under the user's control. The user can use any power in the store. Is that so? After hearing the system's explanation, Liu heaved a sigh of relief. Since it wouldn't affect him if he used the green lotus emperor weapon as a lotus seed, he would just plant it. After walking around the garden of the immortal mansion, Liu chose a suitable location. Let's do it here. Liu walked to the side of a hill and pointed. Use the immortal sword Heavenly Lake as the foundation to build a lotus pond. Clang! That sounded as if thousands of swords were clashing against each other, producing a sword hum. The huge immortal sword Heavenly Lake flew out of the resource warehouse, and the water surged in the air. Endless sword lights whizzed around, and the eerie sword intent swept across the sky. The sharp and cold aura made one tremble in fear. An invisible force imprisoned the entire immortal sword Heavenly Lake. Even though the sword hum was getting more and more intense, it still couldn't break free from this invisible force. The immortal sword Heavenly Lake slowly descended and landed on the ground. On the ground, a black and yellow energy spiraled up and circled around the immortal sword Heavenly Lake. Then, a brilliant light rose up. Boom! Rumble! The ground shook violently for a while, then calmed down. After a while, the light dissipated. A crystal-clear 9 bends lotus pond appeared in front of Li Yu. The 9 bends lotus pond was like a sleeping dragon. A simple and unadorned bluestone fence surrounded the lotus pond. Outside the fence was a bluestone path, hidden by the forest, winding and secluded. That's it? Looking at the quiet and elegant lotus pond in front of him, Li Yu smiled and walked to the side of the lotus pond. He reached into the water and touched it. Ripples appeared and water splashed everywhere. After the immortal sword Heavenly Lake turned into a lotus pond, the lake water that contained boundless sword chi became the same as ordinary water? Li Yu looked at the water stain on his hand in surprise. As the controller of space, he naturally knew that this was just a facade. The boundless sword chi contained within the immortal sword Heavenly Lake was not reduced in the slightest. However, in the past, the sword light was like water. Now, the sword light had transformed into water. There was no longer a difference between sword chi and lake water. Just now, he had reached out his hand to stir up the lake water and caused the water to ripple because it was Li Yu who had done it. As a space manipulator, he was naturally immune to any attacks from space. If it were anyone else who dared to reach out and touch the lake water, they would be instantly turned into ashes by the sword chi. Looks like I'll have to set up a privilege to prevent accidental injuries. What if little Tingting comes here to play with the water one day? The consequences. Thinking up to this point, Li Yu hurriedly gave little Tingting an immunity privilege so that she wouldn't be accidentally injured one day. The lotus pond had been built, and the next step was to plant the lotus flowers. Planting the teal lotus emperor weapon like a lotus flower, this is really, holding the teal lotus emperor weapon in front of his eyes, Li Yu looked at it longingly for a while. Forget it, it's not like I can't use its power anyway. Even if the day comes when I really need to use it as a weapon, I can take it out at any time. Letting out a long breath, Li Yu waved his hand and threw the teal lotus emperor weapon into the lotus pond. The lotus seed has been thrown in. Beginning activation. As the system's stiff voice rang out, the chaotic aura that filled the boundaries of the merchant city shook violently. Like a long, hazy dragon, it howled as it charged toward the lotus pond. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The teal lotus emperor weapon, which was floating motionlessly in the lotus pond, instantly changed when it was hit by the chaotic aura. The jade-green lotus leaves extended rapidly, and the pink lotus flowers bloomed. A thin but vast life force suddenly sprouted. Pieces of jade-green lotus leaves extended in the lotus pond, and pink lotus flowers bloomed in the lotus pond. In a short while, countless green lotuses had grown to fill the entire lotus pond. The chaotic aura has activated the vitality of the teal lotus emperor weapon and made it grow again? Seeing this scene, Li Yu thought to himself. Legend had it that the teal Thearka's original form was the chaotic green lotus. Looking at this situation, it seemed like the rumors were true. After the lotus pond was filled with green lotuses, the chaotic aura dissipated and filled the boundaries of the merchant city. In front of Li Yu, there was only a huge lotus pond filled with green lotuses. The lotus leaves that reach the heavens are infinitely jade green, and the lotus flowers that reflect the sun are exceptionally red. Seeing the scene in front of him, Li Yu couldn't help but recite this poem. There seemed to be many lotuses in front of him, but in reality, there was only one. Even though the entire lotus pond was filled with green lotuses, they were all part of the teal lotus emperor weapon. This pool of green lotuses contains an enormous amount of power. Qi Song Zi's immortal sword Heavenly Pond was the pond water, and the Teal Thearka's emperor weapon was the lotus. How extravagant was this? The system said that I can use all the power in the shop space at will. It's true indeed. With a thought, spots of sword light circled around his fingertips like swimming fish. The sword moved according to his thoughts, as if it was his arm. He could control it more freely and flexibly than before. At this moment, Liu also understood what it meant when it said that the shop space was the user's foundation. It turns out that as long as the power is incorporated into the shop space, I can use it at will without the system's transfer. In the past, all the power that Liu used was actually the system's credit. For example, when Liu wanted to fly, the entire process would be like this. First, he would choose an energy source, such as the energy contained in the crocodile ancestor's body or the energy contained in the heart of the demon god. Then, he would let the system extract the energy to drive the flying skill that Liu chose. In this way, the power that Liu used had to be transferred by the system before it could be used. But now it was different. If Liu wanted to fly now, he did not need to go through the system at all. He could directly use the sword escape technique from the lotus pond to fly. He could also use the power of the emperor weapon, Green Lotus, to cross thousands of rivers and mountains. After understanding this problem, Liu realized that the things he could use were far more than that. For example, the chaotic qi, the yin and yang qi, the black and yellow qi, and even the Enlightenment Bodhi tree's spiritual intelligence could be used. As expected, it's the foundation, Liu exclaimed in delight. The shop space was only in its initial stages, and the shop building was only in its embryonic form, but it had already brought about such great benefits. When the system was sold all over the world, and resources from all over the world were gathered, how powerful would the shop space be? With this as the foundation, how powerful would Liu be? It's true that the shop space is the foundation, but my own cultivation is the true foundation. Liu extended his palm in front of his eyes and smiled. Although the shop space is powerful, it's still just an external object. Only when one's own strength is true strength. Looks like I have to continue staying in the Kangwu Academy for a while. Chapter 64. I still know too little about this world. Liu found a stone stool beside the lotus pond and sat down, thinking about his future plans. As one of the top 10 Confucian sacred grounds, the Kangwu Academy must have countless books. I can scan and record this information through the system. It's very helpful for me to understand this world. After making up his mind, Liu planned to continue staying in the Kangwu Academy for a while. At the very least, he had to understand the cultivation methods of this world and grasp the structure of this world. Only then would it be beneficial for his future actions. Right now, the Azure Lotus Emperor weapon is undergoing tribulation outside, and it's very chaotic. I'd better not join in the fun for the time being. Thinking about the big incident he had caused, Liu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Fortunately, I took out the Azure Lotus Emperor weapon out of curiosity and caused the tribulation. Nothing happened during the tribulation. Liu took a deep breath with lingering fear. If I took out the Azure Lotus Emperor weapon when I was fighting with the enemy, and the tribulation came, I would be in big trouble. He thought about how he had taken out the Azure Lotus Emperor weapon proudly and planned to kill the enemy in one fell swoop, but the tribulation suddenly came. He couldn't act cool and was struck by lightning instead. That scene was too beautiful. He didn't dare to look at it. It's still night outside, and everyone is making a ruckus because of the tribulation. No one will pay attention to me. So, I'll wait until tomorrow morning before going back. Liu opened the system's resource library and planned to take this opportunity to clean it up. I searched everywhere in the previous world and plundered a lot of things, but I didn't have the time to take a careful inventory. Looking back at his experience in the previous world, Liu realized that he had indeed forgotten a lot of things. First, there was the pile of broken Buddhist artifacts. In the Great Thunderclap Temple, Liu ordered Zhou Yi to plunder everything, and even the plaque and Buddha statue were taken down. These things are useless for now. However, I heard that Buddhism also exists in this world. I might be able to fool those baldies one day if I keep them. I'll leave them there for now. Then, there was the crocodile ancestor's corpse. Liu had been extracting this thing as an energy source, and he didn't find any further use for now. He could only leave it there. The divine spring of the forbidden land of the desolate ancient. This thing is pretty good. It can revive the dead. What about the elixirs of immortality? Liu suddenly thought of a question. Since the Bodhi seed could be grown and the green lotus tharch weapon could be grown like a lotus, could the elixir of immortality be grown? System, can I plant these elixirs of immortality? The elixir of immortality that the user possesses is only the fruit, the seed of the elixir of immortality. It can't be planted. Aren't they seeds? Liu pondered and nodded. It seemed like it was very troublesome for the immortal herb to bear seeds, just like nirvana rebirth. It was no surprise that the immortal medicine fruit in his hand could not be planted. System, tell the spirit of the heavenly book to give Zhou Yi a mission and get a few elixirs of immortality for the founder to play with. The Grandmaster's garden is empty. How is that appropriate? At this time, Liu finally looked like the mastermind behind the scenes. He had learned the great art of opening the mouth of an official and running the legs of a servant. There was a large pile of various weapons and treasures collected in the Lotus Thearka's tomb. There were more than a dozen saint-level weapons, including the Soul Buster clock. Basically, they were not used and could only be put aside. These source stones. Liu saw the source stones collected in Shoutingting's house and had a thought. System, can these source stones be buried under the floating island and become source stones again? Yes, but it doesn't make sense. All right. Liu sighed. He originally planned to bury the source stones underground and see if the source stones could be expanded the next time the space expanded. However, the system directly blocked his thoughts. There was no such thing as a good thing. What's left is the fire region. Looking at the raging flames in the system warehouse, Liu smiled. This was a good thing, but how should he use it? System, can these flames be used as materials in the shopping mall space? Ever since he understood that he could use all the energy in the shopping mall's space at will, Liu had been racking his brains to constantly enrich the space's power. The 9 types of flames in the fire region were all extraordinary. Among them, the invisible immortal fire was immortal level power. Once it was included in the shopping mall's space, Liu could use more power. Flame materials are not necessary for the shopping mall's construction. If the user requests, these flames can be included in the shopping mall's lighting function. Lighting function? In other words, lamps? When Liu heard this answer, even though his mental fortitude had been tempered by the Bodhi seed and the Lotus Emperor weapon, he still sucked in a breath of cold air. These were immortal-level flames. Using these things as lamps? Such a nouveau riche would easily lose friends. But I like it. Include the fire region's flames in the Immortal Mansion's lighting function. Order received. Lighting function beginning construction. As the system's voice rang out, the flames in the resource warehouse disappeared instantly. In all the halls and courtyards of the immortal abode, one bronze lamp after another was being produced in an ancient style. A moment later, 1,800 bronze lamps of various types appeared in the Immortal Mansion. Construction of the Immortal Mansion's lighting function completed. User, please choose the commonly used lamp flame. Commonly used lamp flame? Liu was slightly taken aback. Choose one of the 9 types of flames as the commonly used lamp flame? What about the other flames? The commonly used lamp flame is used for lighting. The other flames are hidden in the wick. The user can change the lamp flame at will. Is that so? Liu nodded. Since it could be changed at will, the other flames were hidden as well. There was no loss. It didn't matter. As for lighting, of course, the white moonlight sacred flame is more suitable. After a moment's thought, Liu chose the commonly used lamp flame. As soon as Liu's voice fell, the 1,800 bronze lamps of various types in the immortal mansion lit up with a holy white light. For a moment, the entire immortal mansion was enveloped in a holy white flame. The immortal mansion, which was surrounded by immortal chi, suddenly had a holy aura, like a palace in the moon. Suddenly, little Tingting let out a panicked cry. What's going on? Liu was shocked. He hurriedly jumped up and took a step forward, instantly appearing in the room where little Tingting was playing. Entering the room, even Liu was shocked by the scene in front of him. Under the holy light, little Tingting was standing among a pile of cloth dolls, her face full of panic. Little Tingting's body was blooming with a bright moonlight, which resonated with the holy light in the room. Little Tingting's petite figure was completely covered in the brilliant moonlight. Moonlight sacred flame, extreme en physique. It seems that there is some connection between the two. Liu smiled, walked up to little Tingting, and picked her up. Little Tingting, good girl. Don't be afraid. It's all right. After comforting little Tingting, Liu thought of another problem. Should I teach little Tingting how to cultivate? A extreme en physique, coupled with the extreme en sutra, seems to have the bearing of a great emperor? Then, should I cultivate an empress? Chapter 65. Little Tingting was a good child. Liu comforted her for a while and she was fine. After a while, little Tingting fell asleep in Liu's arms. If I wasn't such a loser in my previous life, not only would I have a story with the goddess, but we could even have a child. Unfortunately, looking down at the sleeping little Tingting, Liu sighed secretly. After putting little Tingting on the bed and covering her with a blanket, Liu waved his hand to turn off the lights in the room and walked out of the room. Liu was interrupted by little Tingting's scream just now, so he was not done with his inventory. He still had 3 things left to clean up. One was the divine thought of the great success holy body. After being broken down by the system, his cultivation comprehension, secret techniques, and battle experience were extracted. There was still pure spirit energy left. The other was the remnant soul of the Lotus Emperor's descendant. It was dealt with in the same way. For the time being, other than the pure spiritual energy that could be used to enhance Liu's spiritual essence, no other uses had been found. The last one was the heart of the demon god. After successfully passing the tribulation with the Lotus Emperor weapon, the heart of the demon god became more vigorous. However, this thing could still only be used as an energy source. I'll leave it for now. There will be a time when I can use it. After closing the system resource library, Liu found a room nearby and planned to sleep. He had been so busy as soon as he came back. He opened up the space, did a lot of construction, and even took the time to pass the tribulation. Liu felt as if all the bones in his body were aching. The night was silent. In the morning, the sunlight coming in through the window woke Liu up. Sunlight? There's no sun in the space, right? Liu got up and opened the window. He was confused when he saw the sun hanging high in the sky. System, where did this sun come from? Since when did the store space have a sun? The store space is mounted on the main world. The sun that the user sees now is the projection of the main world's sun in the store space. I see. Liu nodded. Since it's mounted, can the store space be mounted in other worlds? When the user has enough authority, they can choose to mount the mall space in any world. When the shopping mall is developed to a large enough size, it will be equivalent to a world of its own. Understood. It was still too early, and Liu was too lazy to spend time thinking about it. After that, Liu woke shouting up and exchanged some food for her. After settling her down, he turned around and left. They were teleported back to the dorms of the Kangwoo Academy. Liu yawned and pretended to rub his eyes as if he had just woken up. He walked out of the room. Quick, quick, quick. Today's task is very important. We have to plant lotus flowers in hundreds of ponds. Everyone move faster. Don't let anything go wrong. This is a task personally assigned to me by the Mountain Elder, so I must do it well. Haha. With Ancestral Master Green Lotus attaining his Tao, I'm afraid our Kangwoo Mountain will become Lotus Mountain in the future. This isn't just limited to our Kangwoo Mountain. Lotus flowers are being planted all over the Great Chu. Yes, when Ancestral Master Green Lotus attained his Tao, he once said, "Who is the one who bestows the love of the lotus?" Once these words were spoken, everyone in the Great Chu began to plant lotus flowers. When Liu walked out of the room, he saw a bustling scene. Countless disciples, odd job workers, and even the academy's instructors were busy planting lotus flowers. What the heck? It's like this? Liu was a little dumbfounded. Hey, who's that? Why are you still standing there like a fool? Why aren't you working? A delicate shout came from behind. Liu turned around and saw Yin Luo. At this moment, Yin Luo's forehead was covered in a thin layer of sweat. She was holding a basket of lotus seeds and staring at Liu. "Brother Yu, it's you?" Seeing that the lazy person was Liu, Yin Luo shook her head slightly. "Brother Yu, your body is weak, so don't do such heavy work." Yin Luo hadn't even finished speaking when she suddenly cried out in surprise. She threw down the bamboo basket in her hand, and ran towards Liu in a few steps. Then, she opened her eyes wide and stared at Liu. Yin Luo looked at Liu's body several times. Her mouth was wide open, and her face was filled with disbelief. "How can your body, have such vigorous energy and blood? Also, your hair." Yin Luo looked at Liu. She was so shocked that she started to speak incoherently. "After I ate the pill you gave me, I went back to sleep. Then, I felt as if my whole body was different." Liu pretended to be confused. He looked at Yin Luo with gratitude and said, Thank you, Steward Yin. Otherwise, I wouldn't have the strength to truss a chicken." Yin Luo choked for a long time and couldn't speak. She stretched out her hand and pulled Liu. Then, she said in a panic, "Quick! Let my father take a look at you. There's something wrong with your situation." "Something wrong?" A hint of panic appeared on Liu's face. In fact, he was laughing in his heart. "My situation can't be any more right. I have an innate sage body, and I've also been baptized by this world after the heavenly tribulation. I've fully displayed the might of this constitution. I have the tyrannical body of the sage body, and the innate affinity of the sage body with the great Tao of heaven and earth. I have a peerless innate talent. Let's go. Let's go." Yin Luo shouted anxiously. She pulled Liu and ran away. Liu had no choice but to follow Yin Luo to Steward Yin's place. "Greetings, Steward Yin." They arrived at the lobby of the chores yard, and saw that Steward Yin was writing something in the study room. Liu quickly went forward to greet him. Liu respected Steward Yin very much. With Liu's current strength, he could kill 100 Steward Yins as easily as blowing off dust. However, Steward Yin had once lent a helping hand to Liu when he was still weak. Liu wasn't the kind of ingrate who would turn hostile and not recognize people. Therefore, his attitude towards Steward Yin and his daughter was still very close. "You've come?" Steward Yin raised his head from the pile of books, and smiled at Liu and Yin Luo. "What's the matter?" Steward Yin suddenly stood up, and stared straight at Liu. "You actually, father, quickly take a look at him. What happened to him? Why did his body suddenly become like this?" There won't be any problem, right? Een Luo said anxiously to Steward Een. What problem? Of course there's no problem. His body can't be any better. Steward Een stood up and walked to Li Yu's side, and stretched out his hand to rest on Li Yu's wrist. Feeling Li Yu's strong pulse, Steward Een opened his mouth wide, and couldn't close it for a long time. You've only eaten one vitality nurturing and blood nourishing pill, and your body has actually undergone such a tremendous change? Steward Een released his hand, and looked at Li Yu's body. Previously, your vitality was like a candle in the wind, but now it's like the blazing sun. With such a scene, could it be the legendary 9 cycles of samsara? 9 cycles of samsara? What does that mean? Een Luo asked with a frown. According to legend, the 9 cycles of samsara has 9 signs of death and 9 signs of life. Previously, your vitality was withered, and you were on the verge of death. Now, your vitality is like a rainbow, shining with boundless radiance. I'm afraid that this situation can only be explained by the 9 cycles of samsara. A brilliant smile bloomed on Steward Yin's face. The 9 cycles of samsara is a peerless cultivation talent. Good, good, good. First, there was Ancestor Green Lotus, and now, the 9 cycles of samsara has appeared in this world. This is the sign of my blue parasol sex great prosperity. Li Yu, are you willing to acknowledge me as your master? Steward Een smiled as he looked at Li Yu, and his face was filled with anticipation. Father, you want to take him as your disciple? That's great. That's great. Een Luo clapped and jumped up in joy. This disciple is willing. Li Yu didn't think that he needed to acknowledge anyone as his master, but when he saw Steward Yin's face filled with anticipation and Een Luo's joyful expression, he couldn't bring himself to refuse. All right, I'll take it as repaying a debt of gratitude. Li Yu bowed to Steward Een. This disciple pays his respects to master. P.S. Many people saw the main character acknowledging a master, and they started to curse. Let's not talk about the debt of gratitude. Everyone had an opinion that Steward Yin's status was too low. But when did I say that Steward Yin's status was low? I have an explanation for this world's cultivation settings, and it doesn't mean that those who do manual labor have a low status. If a sweeping monk can be awesome, why can't a steward be awesome? Chapter 66. Good. Good. Manager Een laughed heartily as he reached out to help Li Yu up. It's my fortune to have such a fine disciple to teach me. Master, you flatter me. Li Yu smiled as he stood up. Looking at this new master of his, he was filled with emotion. When he'd just transmigrated, Li Yu had fallen down and fainted in the wilderness. If it wasn't for Manager Yin's help, Li Yu would probably have been bitten by wild beasts long ago. When he came to the academy, he was completely powerless. If it wasn't for Manager Een looking after him, he probably wouldn't even be able to beat the beggars on the side of the road. Even with the system, if it wasn't for the vitality nurturing and blood nourishing pill, who knew when he'd be able to successfully activate the system? Therefore, Manager Yin's family was really Li Yu's saviors. Even if Li Yu's horizons were broadened and his aspirations were high, he still didn't have any airs to put on when facing Manager Yin's family. More importantly, when Li Yu transmigrated to this world, he was all alone and weak. If he wanted to gain a foothold in this world, a sufficiently strong sect background was an extremely good aid. To put it in a more utilitarian way, with his relationship with Manager Een and the Ancestor Green Lotus that he'd randomly created, Kanwu Academy was Li Yu's best choice. Therefore, taking Manager Een as his master and deepening their relationship was also an extremely good choice. Moreover, wasn't there still the Ancestor Green Lotus? Although exposing his relationship with the Ancestor Green Lotus would cause countless people to chase after Li Yu in search of the Ancestor Green Lotus, it would bring endless trouble. However, it wasn't like he couldn't reveal this trump card when it was necessary. Since that's the case, then I'll just obediently be a disciple. What if he doesn't just teach me martial arts, but also gives me a daughter? Thinking up to here, Liu secretly laughed and glanced at Yin Luo. That girl was still laughing at the side and didn't pay attention to Liu's little actions at all. Steward Yin had seen it, but he would never have guessed what Liu was thinking. Yes. Since you've become my disciple, you're no longer a servant. Well, you're not really a handyman anyway. Manager Yin stroked his beard as he smiled at Liu. From now onward, you're a disciple of my Kangwu Academy. My Kangwu Academy is the cultivation ground of the Confucian school. The disciples of the academy were all scholars. Therefore, you also need to take a courtesy name. Manager Yin returned to his desk and sat down. He took out a register and began to fill in Liu's name on it. Do you have a courtesy name? While filling in Liu's name, Steward Yin raised his head and asked Liu a question. Courtesy name? A thought flashed through Liu's mind. He bowed to Steward Yin and answered, Disciple Liu, courtesy name Qinglian. Green Lotus? What? Green Lotus. When Liu said his courtesy name, Manager Yin was stunned and stopped writing. Yin Luo stared at Liu with wide eyes. Her shoulders trembled as if she was trying her best to hold back her laughter. Is there something wrong? Liu had an innocent look on his face as if he really didn't know anything. Ha. When Yin Luo saw Liu's appearance, she finally couldn't hold back her laughter. As she laughed, she pointed at Liu. Don't tell me you didn't know it all? Something so big happened last night, and you didn't know it all? You slept so deeply? The process of the 9 cycles of reincarnation body turning from deathly stillness to vitality is like a butterfly breaking out of its cocoon. Last night was when your vitality was changing, so it's understandable that you didn't hear it. Manager Yin thought for a moment and thought of a very reasonable explanation. I have an innate sage body. What the hell is the 9 cycles of reincarnation body? When Liu heard Steward Yin talking about the 9 reincarnation physique, he felt a little depressed and muttered to himself. Brother you missed the big scene last night. Yin Luo raised her head proudly and looked at Liu with a faint smile. She looked like she was showing off. Luo don't keep me in suspense. Manager Yin smiled and shook his head. He raised his eyes and looked at Liu. Master will tell you directly. Last night, our Blue Parasol Academy's ancestor Green Lotus proved the Supreme Tao and advanced to a Supreme Grandmaster. The sonorous voice of the Great Tao spread throughout the world, and the divine spirits of the 5 directions congratulated him. Supreme Grandmaster? What realm is that? Liu heard this term many times, but he still couldn't make sense of it. He didn't understand the cultivation realms of this world, so how could he know what a Supreme Grandmaster was? Shouldn't you be surprised by the ancestor's name? Ancestor Green Lotus. The ancestor's name is Green Lotus, and you dare to call yourself Green Lotus? Seeing that Liu's focus was in the wrong direction, Yin Luo quickly reminded Liu where the main point was. Alright. Ancestor Green Lotus or Supreme Grandmaster Green Lotus. To Liu, it didn't deter him at all. When he saw Yin Luo's anxious look, Liu couldn't help but think mischievously, Your ancestor Green Lotus has already been planted in the lotus pond by me. Master, did my courtesy name break a taboo? Liu pretended to be cautious and asked Manager Yin. There's nothing to avoid. Our Blue Parasol Academy doesn't have that many rules. After Ancestor Green Lotus proved his Tao, countless people changed their courtesy name to Jinglian, Shilian, Mulian, and so on. It's very rare to see someone like you who directly used Green Lotus. Manager Yin looked at Liu with a smile, and it made Liu feel a little embarrassed. Liu lowered his head slightly. Alright, it's no big deal. Manager Yin smiled. Under Yin Luo's astonished gaze, He lifted the brush and wrote down Li Yu's name. Li Yu, courtesy name Qinglian. Don't embarrass Ancestor Green Lotus by using this courtesy name. You have to cultivate seriously, understand? Yin Luo reminded from the side. Li Yu quickly nodded. At a time like this, he naturally couldn't refute. After all, he couldn't just say that he had planted Ancestor Green Lotus in the Lotus Pond by himself. What supreme realm of Tao validation? It was just something he made up. If Li Yu dared to say such a thing, he would definitely be taught a terrible lesson. Since you've joined my Blue Parasol School, Master will tell you about the situation in my Blue Parasol Academy. Manager Yin raised his head and looked solemnly at Li Yu. My Blue Parasol Academy is one of the 10 great sacred lands of the Confucian school, and it has been established for tens of thousands of years. Over the years, my Blue Parasol Academy has produced countless geniuses, and the number of cultivators who have become grandmasters and grandmasters is uncountable. Now that Ancestor Green Lotus has attained Tao validation, my Blue Parasol Academy has a supreme grandmaster, and it's already one of the strongest sects in the world. It's actually that powerful. Li Yu was secretly shocked. How deep was the foundation of a sect that had existed for over 10,000 years? Presumably, the books in the book collection tower were all-encompassing. Looks like my decision to stay in Blue Parasol Academy was right. As long as I approach the library and scan all the books in it, I'll definitely be able to understand a lot of information about this world. Manager Yin nodded with satisfaction when he saw Li Yu's shocked expression. When a newcomer joined a sect, he had to develop a sense of belonging to the sect. Publicizing the glory of the sect and declaring the status of the sect was the best method. The 10 sacred lands of Confucianism, the 9 paradise of Taoism, and the 8 great temples of Buddhism. These are the top sects in the world. My Blue Parasol Academy is the 4th sect in the world to be guarded by a supreme grandmaster. Our Blue Parasol Academy can be said to be a true top sect in the world. Manager Yin raised his head proudly as if he was very proud of this top sect in the world. Now that you've joined my sect, you must cultivate seriously and not slack off. Yes. Li Yu nodded in agreement, and then he asked Manager Yin, Master, you still haven't told me what the Supreme Grandmaster realm is. Chapter 67. You haven't even entered the sect, but you're already thinking about becoming a Supreme Grandmaster? You're quite ambitious. Yin Luo interrupted from the side and giggled at Li Yu. There's nothing wrong with having lofty ambitions. Manager Yin smiled and nodded. Since you've asked, I'll tell you about our Confucian sect's cultivation. I'll let you know what's going on. Manager Yin stood up from the table and walked to the window. He pointed at the sky outside the window and turned to look at Li Yu. Heaven and earth give birth to all living things. Therefore, our cultivation originates from this heaven and earth. Heaven and earth? Li Yu shook his head blankly, indicating that he didn't understand. It's heaven and earth. Manager Yin turned around and pointed at himself before pointing at Li Yu and Yin Luo. The world is heaven and earth, and the human body is also heaven and earth. Our cultivation is to go from our own inner world to the outer world of the world. There are countless sects in the world, and their cultivation methods are all different. However, in the end, they all come from one's own body to heaven and earth. The entire cultivation process is to recognize heaven and earth, understand heaven and earth, and control heaven and earth. Master, please enlighten me. Hearing Manager Yin's theory, Li Yu was completely confused. What heaven and earth? Who knew what was going on? Li Yu hadn't come into contact with the cultivation of this world. Even if he'd exchanged for the endless scripture and opened up the sea of bitterness, the two theories were completely different. Alright. Manager Yin smiled and shook his head. You still don't understand these things. It's still too early for me to tell you this. That's right. That's right. Father always talks about mysterious things. I'm already dozing off from listening to it. Luo sat on a stool at the side and tapped her mouth. She had an impatient look on her face. I'll give you a simple explanation. Manager glared at Luo. Then, he turned to Li Yu and said, Our Confucian sex cultivation begins with cultivating the body and nurturing the qi. Then, it's investigating things to gain knowledge. Finally, it's sincerity and righteousness. Cultivating the body and nurturing the qi is to gather the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and absorb the essence of the sun and moon. It's to consolidate one's foundation and nurture one's qi. Manager stretched out his hand and lightly tapped the bronze paperweight on the table. A clear fingerprint deeply embedded itself in the bronze paperweight. Do you see it? I didn't use any spiritual energy, only the strength of my body. This is the effect of cultivating the body. Steward retracted his finger and said to Li Yu, Cultivating the body is to strengthen the body, making it full of qi and blood, and making it powerful. Cultivating the body is the foundation of nurturing the qi. Nurturing the qi's qi is qi ts qi cultivated the qi. The stronger the body, the more abundant the blood and qi, the easier it is to nurture qi, and the faster it is to cultivate true qi. To nurture sststes qis nurturing qi ss nurture t cultivating s nurture. The Taoist qi's nurturing qis nurturing qi is soft and gentle. Qi's nurturing qi is the most stable. Even if one can't cultivate qi, they can still prolong one's life. The Buddhist's golden body is Vajras is indestructible and has infinite strength. Qi's nurturing qi is the slowest, but it's the strongest in the body cultivation realm. The other sect's body cultivation technique is even more varied. As for the variant demons in the uncivilized lands, they are born with tyrannical bodies. From the beginning of their cultivation, they directly refine their monster qi from their qi and blood. Then, through constant fighting and plundering, they devour the qi and blood of others to condense their true qi. Next, Manager gave Li Yu a detailed introduction of the body cultivation realm's cultivation methods. For example, there were fist techniques that tempered the body and blood, various kinds of pills that nourished qi and blood, medicinal baths that aided cultivation, various kinds of food made from the flesh and blood of monsters with tyrannical qi and blood, and so on. Li Yu had memorized all of these things, but he wouldn't use this method. Regardless of whether or not he still needed to nourish his qi and blood, even if he did, the qi and blood contained in a drop of blood from the crocodile ancestor's corpse, or rather, the life force, was enough to make countless people explode. After body cultivation is qi cultivation. Seeing Li Yu silently memorize this knowledge, Manager nodded inwardly and continued. The human body is the inner world, and the world is the outer world. However, the inner and outer worlds are not connected. If you want to connect the inner and outer worlds, you have to rely on your own refined true qi to break open your acupoint. Only then can you communicate with the outer world and draw spirit into your body. Therefore, the qi cultivation realm is a process of constantly opening your acupoints and drawing spirit into your body to improve your true qi. When the acupoints in your body are completely smooth and your true qi is filled to the brim as one, you have reached the great success of qi cultivation. Cultivators in the body cultivation realm are called scholars. In our Confucian sect, body cultivation is called scholars, and qi cultivation is called scholars. As for the outer world, there are all kinds of titles, such as warriors, swordsmen, Taoists, lay scholars, necromancers, warlocks, and so on. After body cultivation and qi cultivation, it is time to investigate things and attain knowledge. At this stage, the cultivator starts to communicate with the heaven and earth. They can control the spiritual qi of heaven and earth with a wave of their hand. They already have the power to fly in the sky, burrow into the earth, move mountains, and fill seas. Investigating things and attaining knowledge is what our Confucian sect calls it. In the outer world, this stage is called psychic enlightenment. Psychic enlightenment is to communicate with the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, and enlightenment is to come in contact with the great Tao of heaven and earth. Cultivators at this stage are called great masters. In the outer world, they are called psychic great masters or enlightenment great masters. After saying this, Manager Yin's throat became somewhat dry. He reached out his hand and took a sip of tea. Master, the tea is already cold. I'll change it for you. When Li Yu saw this, he promptly reached out his hand and picked up the teapot on the table. I'll go and make the tea. Yin Luo jumped up from the stool and snatched the teapot from Li Yu's hand. Then, she turned around and ran out. This girl is definitely trying to take advantage of this opportunity to slip away. Manager Yin put down the teacup in his hand and shook his head with a smile. Junior sister is already very familiar with these things, so she naturally doesn't want to hear them. Master, you don't need to take offense. Li Yu smiled as he spoke in Yin Luo's defense. She's just trying to be lazy. Manager Yin shook his head and said, Don't worry about her. Let's continue. Investigating things and attaining knowledge is the psychic enlightenment realm. The psychic enlightenment realm is like a heavenly moat that has blocked countless people. Therefore, cultivators who can advance to the psychic enlightenment realm are all people with outstanding innate talent. After saying this, Manager Yin's face was full of emotion. After investigating things and attaining knowledge is sincerity and righteousness. In the outer world, these are called attaining the Tao, confirming the Tao, and achieving the Tao. Sincerity and righteousness is the process of comprehending one's own Tao, practicing it, and achieving one's own Tao. Cultivators at this stage are called great masters. Attaining the Tao is called great masters. Confirming the Tao is called great masters. Achieving the Tao is called supreme great masters. When Ancestor Green Lotus confirmed the supreme great Tao, his sonorous voice spread in all directions. This is the supreme great master who achieved the Tao. It is said that, after achieving the Tao, there is also the Tao of celestial beings. I don't know about this. After Manager Yin finished speaking, he walked in front of Li Yu and said, Your innate talent is out of the ordinary. You must cultivate seriously. Master is very optimistic about you. Yes. Li Yu nodded. Then, he suddenly thought of a problem and promptly asked Manager Yin, Master, what realm are you in now? Master? Manager Yin smiled and shook his head. Master is still at the stage of practicing my own Tao. The day of my breakthrough is still far away. Practicing your own Tao? Great Master? Master is actually a great master? Li Yu looked at Manager Yin in surprise. He couldn't see it at all. The chores yard was equivalent to a logistics department. This wasn't an important position, but there was actually a great master in charge. Practicing one's own Tao is practicing it personally. Master's Tao is knowing etiquette. As the chores yard's manager, I am practicing my own Tao. As if seeing Li Yu's surprise, Manager Yin explained, If you don't take a few steps, you won't be able to travel 1,000 miles. In the academy, there are great masters who carry water every day. Practicing it personally? I see. Li Yu nodded thoughtfully. He secretly made a note not to be too pretentious here. What if one day he met a great master who was practicing his own Tao as a gatekeeper? P.S. Post a complaint. In the past few days there were people finding fault in the book review section every day. When he clicked on the name, it was actually an author. Why did the author make things difficult for the author? I didn't provoke you. Chapter 68. The path of cultivation in this world is like this? Li Yu frowned and pondered deeply after he finished listening to Manager Yin's explanation. Cultivating the body and nurturing qi is essentially the process of refining essence into qi. To attain knowledge through investigation, or to communicate with the spirit and comprehend the Tao, it's obviously refining qi into spirit. The so-called attaining the Tao or achieving the Tao is to refine the spirit and return to the void. As for heavenly beings, it's definitely at the void refinement and Tao integration stage. Even though the cultivation methods are different, they're essentially still on the path of essence, energy, and spirit. The body, true qi, and divine sense. The cultivation of any world can't be separated from these three. So, the cultivation methods of the previous world are actually essentially the same as the cultivation methods of this world. It's just that the methods are different. I have to find an opportunity to go to the library as soon as possible. Only by completely understanding the cultivation methods of Dark Parasol Academy will I be able to have an accurate position. Liu stopped pondering and raised his head to look at Manager Yin. If he wanted to go to the library, he had to rely on Manager Yin's strength. Do you understand now? When he saw Liu raise his head from deep thought, Manager Yin asked with a smile. Thank you for enlightening me, Master. I've benefited greatly. Liu stood up and replied. Since you have some understanding of cultivation, Master will first teach you a set of righteous body tempering fists. This fist technique is an introductory cultivation method of my Dark Parasol Academy, and it's most suitable for beginners to strengthen their bodies and strengthen their vital blood. As Manager Yin spoke, he brought Liu to the rear courtyard. Watch carefully. Master will demonstrate it for you now. Manager Yin reminded Liu, and then he got into a stance and started to practice the righteous body tempering fist in the courtyard. When this fist technique was executed, every move and stance was firm and powerful. The only problem was that, how unsightly. The corners of Liu's eyes twitched when he saw Manager Yin waving his arms and raising his legs like he was doing gymnastics, and he couldn't help but ridicule. Since his master taught him martial arts, he had to learn it. With a thought, Liu activated the spiritual intelligence of the Bodhi tree in the store space. The power of increasing comprehension was added to his body. Instantly, his ears became clearer and his eyes became clearer. He felt refreshed, and the light of wisdom continued to bloom in his mind. Manager Yin's every move, every movement, and every detail of his energy circulation were all very clear in Liu's eyes. A moment later, Manager Yin stopped and stood up. He asked Liu, "Have you memorized it?" "Disciple will remember." With the support of the Bodhi tree, how could he not remember a mere fist technique? Yes. It's good that you remember it. Manager Yin's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. He was very surprised by Liu's reaction, but his expression did not change. If you remember, go back and practice more. This cultivation technique is the foundation of the foundation. You must not slack off. Yes. Liu quickly agreed. He knew very well that the more basic something was, the more important it was. Although Liu possessed great power, he was only at the beginning of his cultivation. Very good. Manager Yin nodded. Since you have become my disciple, you are already a disciple of the Kangwu Academy. Later, go to the storehouse and get a set of Academy disciple attire. Yes, as for living quarters, there are still a few residences for deacon disciples in the chores court. You can choose one yourself. A deacon disciple? Liu did not understand this title. Oh, I forgot to tell you. Manager Yin smiled. Our Kangwu Academy's disciples are divided into a few types. The first type is the Academy's students. These students do not have a specific master. Instead, they are divided into different classes according to their age, talent, and other factors. They are taught in groups, read books, listen to lectures, and cultivate in the academy. The other type is the deacon disciple. Speaking up to here, Manager Yin looked at Liu. Students like you who are under the tutelage of the Academy's instructors and managers are considered deacon disciples. Deacon disciples learn from their masters and do not need to participate in group lectures. However, deacon disciples are responsible for some chores in the Academy. Oh! Liu nodded. He already understood. Those students who taught in groups were similar to ordinary university students. Deacon disciples were similar to graduate students who followed their professors. However, these graduate students still needed to take on some of the student council's work. Then what kind of chores do I have to take on? Liu was very interested in this. It would be great if he could take on some chores in the library, such as being responsible for registering books. Then, he would have the opportunity to scan the various books in the library. Generally speaking, deacon disciples follow their masters to take care of chores. I don't have much to do here, and Yin Luo is also taking care of chores for me. There is no need for you to be here. Manager Yin turned to look at Liu and smiled. Do you have any place you want to go? If you do, I will arrange it for you. That's great. Liu was overjoyed. This was really like someone giving him a pillow when he wanted to doze off. I like to read. I wonder if I can take on some chores in the library? Liu hurriedly raised his request to Manager Yin. Library? Manager Yin looked at Liu with a smile that wasn't a smile. You brat, you haven't learned how to walk yet and you want to run? You want to find a few cultivation methods in the library to practice, right? Hearing this, Liu could only make an awkward expression that said, "You saw through me." He couldn't say that he wanted to wipe out the library, right? You brat. Manager Yin scolded with a smile. Don't think of this kind of idea. Every cultivation method has a seal. Without permission, you can't even open the book. What's more, when you learn what, I have my own arrangement. Why are you fooling around? Master, I can take a look at other books, right? I don't have much knowledge, so it's better for me to read more books and understand more about the world's affairs. Liu saw that Manager Yin didn't relent and quickly found a very reasonable excuse. That makes sense. Manager Yin stroked his beard and nodded. All right, I'll greet Manager Lin of the library later and ask him to make a report. You can go to the library and take on the position of acting disciple. Thank you, Master. Liu had gotten what he wanted, so his words of thanks were sincere and sincere. An important place in the sect like the library would definitely be heavily guarded. Under the circumstances that he didn't intend to fall out with Kangwu Academy, this method was the most suitable for Liu if he wanted to completely scan the books in the library. After that, Liu took Manager Yin's order and went to the storehouse to get a set of Academy disciple attire. It was a moon-white scholarly robe, and even the crown, belt, and boots were complete. When he held it in his hand, he felt that the clothes were soft and comfortable. Looks like there's something extraordinary about these clothes. Besides that, Liu also obtained a token that indicated his identity as an acting disciple. After he got his things and returned to the labor courtyard, Liu chose a single small courtyard at the northern side of the courtyard that was near the cliff as his residence from now on. When he saw this exquisite courtyard and compared it to the labor courtyard from before, Liu shook his head with a smile. I've finally broken free of my identity as a labor servant. From today onwards, this world will definitely become even more brilliant because of my arrival. I'm just waiting to go to the library tomorrow. Isn't it too satisfying to empty out Kangwu Academy's 10,000 years of wealth? Chapter 69. You're Yin Kongming's new disciple? The steward of the library, Lin Jingji, raised his head from the book he was reading. He narrowed his eyes and looked at Liu. Qi and blood are like the blazing sun, and spiritual light is like the lustrous moon. That bastard Yin Kongming is actually so lucky? Lin Jingji put down the book in his hand and revealed a stiff smile to Liu. Kid, that bastard Yin Kongming is an uncouth fellow. You won't have a good time if you follow him. Why don't you become my disciple? Cough cough. Liu was choked by Manager Lin's words and cough. Manager Lin, I can't accept your words. Cough my ass. Manager Lin glared gloomily at Liu. He naturally knew that Liu had already become his disciple, so it was impossible for him to become someone else's disciple. Fortunately, that bastard Yin Kongming has some self-awareness. He knows that he can't teach such a fine jade like you well, so he still knew to send you to me. At least he's not completely muddle-headed. Lin Jingji stroked his beard and shook his head complacently. Since he's so sincere, then this old man will reluctantly help him teach his disciple. When he heard Manager Lin's words, Liu felt as if 10,000 alpacas were charging through his heart. Manager Lin, is it appropriate for you to think so highly of yourself? My master isn't as unreliable as you say, right? Moreover, when did he ask you to teach me? Liu understood in his heart that since Manager Lin dared to speak of Yin Kongming like this, then he definitely had a similar status as Yin Kongming. In other words, he was a great grandmaster that was practicing his own Tao. As expected, a top sect like Kangwu Academy was filled with ferocious people. I should restrain myself a little and not be too arrogant. What's your name? Let me report it to you. At this moment, Manager Lin raised his brush and opened a book as he asked Liu. Disciple Liu. Liu. What about your handwriting? What's your courtesy name? Disciple Liu. My courtesy name is Qinglian. Liu hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he still uttered his frightening name. Qing, what? Manager Lin had just put down his brush when he heard the words Green Lotus. His hand trembled and a drop of ink spilled onto the ground. Green Lotus? Steward Lin stared at Liu with his eyes wide open. The expression on his face was very interesting. But, after glaring at Liu for a while, Steward Lin slapped the table. I knew it. I knew it. Yin Kongming, that scoundrel, was ignorant and incompetent. His brain was filled with paste. He actually gave you such a courtesy name? This has nothing to do with master. This name was chosen by this disciple myself. Don't cover for him. Before Liu could finish, he was interrupted by Steward Lin. Such an unbridled style, such a messy name, who else could come up with it other than him? If I give you such a nickname, who would dare to use it? Do you dare to answer me? If someone dares to shout, this disciple will naturally dare to answer. You are indeed Yin Kongming's disciple. When Steward Lin heard Liu's reply, his face froze and he did not come back to his senses for a long time. After that, Steward Lin could not be bothered to pester Liu about that frightening courtesy name. After reporting to Liu, he gave him a jade token. Take this. This is the identity token of the library's managing disciple. Handing the token to Liu, Steward Lin instructed seriously, the library is an important place in the sect. A powerful array is set up. Without the token, you can't enter the library. Keep it well. Don't lose it. Yes. Liu agreed and kept the token. Follow me. Steward Lin stood up and led Liu out of the room. After passing through a bluestone path, a steep gorge was in front of them. The cliffs on both sides of the gorge were as smooth as walls. It was as if someone had sliced open the mountain peak with a sword, forming such a gorge. After passing through the gorge, the main hall of the library is behind us. Steward Lin pointed at the mouth of the gorge and said to Liu. Then, he led Liu forward. The gorge looked very steep, but it was not narrow. A path that was almost 100 meters wide directly connected the entire gorge. After passing through the gorge, there was a huge building complex ahead. There were a total of 9 huge halls that were about 100 meters tall and a few dozen smaller buildings. So this is the library. Steward Lin pointed at the huge buildings and smiled at Liu. This is the accumulation of my Kangwu Academy for over 10,000 years. All of these are. Even though he was mentally prepared, Li Yu was still shocked by the scale of the library. There were so many places to store books. How many books were there? Although he was shocked, Li Yu was also very happy in his heart. There were so many books. After the system scanned and stored them all, the information obtained would definitely be very sufficient. He composed himself and followed Steward Lin all the way to the library. The library has a total of 9 halls and 14 pavilions. There are a myriad of books within it, and it's vast like an ocean. It's the accumulation of my Kangwu Academy for over 10,000 years to form its current scale. As Manager Lin walked, he introduced the library to Li Yu. The books in the library are all-encompassing. There are cultivation techniques, martial skills, secret arts, medicinal pills, talismans, tools, and array formations. There is nothing you don't have. Ordinary astronomy, geography, local customs, historical anecdotes, everything you need to know is there. The library is actually so abundant? Li Yu's eyes instantly glowed when he heard Steward Lin's introduction. Of course. Steward Lin raised his head proudly. The library of my Kangwu Academy is renowned for its abundance. I've practiced the Tao of reading a book is beneficial, and stayed in the library for a few tens of years, yet I've only finished reading a small portion of the books. Reading a book is beneficial? Reading is the Tao? Li Yu pondered in his heart. He still wasn't clear about the Tao of this world. The love lotus allowed the azure lotus emperor weapon and heart of the demon god to attain the Tao of Supreme Master. Yin Kongming was in charge of the logistics and practiced the Tao of knowing etiquette. Lin Jingji practiced the Tao of reading a book is beneficial, and read with all his might. He even heard that a grandmaster fetched water every day, and no one knew what kind of Tao he was trying to attain. These so-called Taos seemed to be unrelated to each other, and there was nothing in common. Could these Taos really allow one to possess the power to destroy the world? The Azure Lotus Emperor weapon and heart of the demon god had successfully attained the Tao in Li Yu's love lotus. The combined power of the Azure Lotus Emperor weapon and heart of the demon god was only at the level of Supreme Master? What was the measurement of this level? Was it strength? Or something else? The doubts in his heart grew bigger and bigger, and Li Yu's desire to scan the library grew even stronger. After a while, the two of them arrived at the entrance of the library. The entrance of the library was a palace-like building. After passing through the entrance, there was a wide corridor. Following the corridor, one could directly reach the 9 halls and 14 pavilions of the library. I'll leave this place to you. There aren't many things for the deacon of the library. One is to check the array of the library regularly every day to see if it's operating normally. The other is to record when someone comes to borrow books. After hurriedly giving a few instructions, Steward Lin got up and went into the library to read again. This place will be under my management in the future? Li Yu turned his head and glanced around before chuckling. System, scan all the books in the library and record them into the system's resource library. P.S. There are always people who are confused about the cultivation level. Don't force me to spoil, okay? The Azure Lotus Tao validation is a trap. The cultivation method of this world is also a trap. Don't take it for granted and spout nonsense. Chapter 70. Command received. Beginning scan. As the system's dull voice sounded, an invisible wave swept through the entire library. What's going on? In a large hall in the library, Steward Lin was sitting at a table and reading the books in his hands with great interest. However, he suddenly felt his heart palpitate. Sudden inspiration? Warning signs in my heart? What's going on? Steward Lin suddenly stood up, and the image of a scroll appeared above his head. An aura with a faint ink fragrance rippled out like a wave and swept through the entire library. There's actually no abnormality? Steward Lin sat back at the table with a blank expression. What's with the palpitations just now? Liu didn't know that Steward Lin had a warning sign in his heart because he scanned the library. Even if he knew, he wouldn't care. So what if he had a warning sign in his heart? No one could discover anything from the system's scan. They were still confused and didn't know what was going on. Consumed 350 points of energy. Scan complete. Recording of resources complete. Consumed so much energy? Hearing the system's notification, Liu frowned slightly. The energy consumed for the scan this time had exceeded Liu's expectations. The energy consumption was probably related to the array enveloping the library. It's because I don't have enough energy that I had no choice but to run to the library to scan. I didn't expect to still consume so much energy. The energy obtained from the previous world, opening the temporary recovery tunnel twice, and the consumption from bringing Little Tingting back, as well as the usual miscellaneous consumption, was only around 2,000 points. Now that he had spent another 300 points, he was only left with 2,000 points. He had to use it sparingly. Actually, it wasn't that Liu didn't have a way to increase his energy. Whether it was the crocodile ancestor's corpse or the heart of the demon god, as long as Liu was willing to exchange them for the system's energy, his energy would instantly increase exponentially. However, it was meaningless. Physical resources were much more powerful than pure energy. I don't need to use too much energy for now. Let's leave it at that for now. Liu placed his thoughts on the system's resource library. When he saw the countless newly scanned books, Liu grinned. Now, I've completely emptied out the 10,000 years of history of Kangwu Academy. So much knowledge. I'm afraid it'll take a long time to transfer it all into my mind. Well, this is a happy worry. Liu sat down at the table and began to check the results of the scan. System, organize all the scanned information according to categories and form a catalog. Sorting out information. Catalog construction complete. Open it. With Liu's command, an interface instantly popped up in his mind. There was only a map-like icon in the middle, and the words, Main World Information, were displayed on it. After opening it, two scroll-like icons appeared. One was Information on the Cultivation World, and the other was Information on the Secular World. This interface isn't bad. It's very clear. Liu nodded and opened Information on the Cultivation World. Many more entries appeared. For example, information on sex, information on races, cultivation techniques, combat techniques, medicinal pills, talismans, formations, tools, and so on. In the information on the secular world, there were things like countries and powers, geographical distribution, customs and habits, laws and regulations, language, and so on. Damn, isn't this a little too much? With just a glance at the catalog, Liu felt slightly dizzy. Looks like I was mistaken before. How can I transfer all this information into my mind? Not only will I suffer, but there's also no need to do so. Since the system had already recorded all the information, there was no need to transfer it into his mind. Firstly, there were many things that he didn't need at all. Secondly, even if he wanted to use them, he could check with the system at any time. Pouring it into his mind was purely asking for trouble. Having collected so much information, I'm afraid I'm the most knowledgeable person in the world. Thinking about how Steward Lin had only finished a small portion of the books he had read in the library for tens of years, Liu couldn't help but want to laugh. What a pity, Liu sighed greedily. If there was an energy source similar to the one in the small divine realm in the bronze coffin, I would be able to scan all the information in the world, just like in the previous world. Of course, Liu also knew that this was completely a dream. The energy source in the previous world, which was as large and safe as the small divine realm, was something that could only be found by chance. It was almost impossible to reproduce such a situation. With this information, I can understand this world further. As an outsider who was alone in a foreign land, the first thing he had to think about was how to survive safely. Although with Li Yu's strength, there wouldn't be any danger of survival. But it was still necessary to fully understand this world. System, organize a summary of this world for me. World summary has been organized. A stream of information flowed into Li Yu's mind, and the overview of this world circulated in Li Yu's mind. There's only one continent? It's 115,000 kilometers from east to west and 96,000 kilometers from north to south. The sky is round and the earth is surrounded by the sea. This world is so small? Seeing this summary, Li Yu was obviously a little stunned. According to the situation of the Green Lotus Tao verification, the Green Lotus Emperor weapon and the heart of the demon god were equivalent to a supreme grandmaster. The level of power in this world was so high, but the world was so small. If the world wasn't big enough, how could it bear a powerful individual? If the world wasn't big enough, how could it have enough energy to give birth to a powerful individual? Saint-level experts could tear the sky and shatter the stars, right? Quasi-emperors could destroy the world, right? Although the Green Lotus Emperor weapon and the heart of the demon god couldn't be compared to a real great emperor, it should be equivalent to a quasi-emperor, right? It seemed that the race relations in this world weren't good, and they often fought until blood flowed like rivers. After so many years of fighting, this world hadn't been destroyed? Could the reason why this world hasn't been destroyed be related to the rules of power in this world? Then, is it Tao? What exactly is the Tao of this world? Thinking of this, Li Yu hurriedly ordered the system, sort out this world's understanding of Tao. Sorting completed. In the blink of an eye, the system presented the Tao that it had sorted out in Li Yu's mind. My wish is my Tao. This was the first sentence that Li Yu saw. Since the system put this sentence at the top, it meant that this sentence was the most correct one among the understanding of Tao. My wish is my Tao. The most persistent dream in my heart is the Tao that I'm pursuing? Li Yu frowned and didn't speak for a long time. According to this understanding, the so-called Tao was the most persistent persistence in one's heart, the deepest dream and the strongest desire. Achieving Tao was to clarify one's greatest dream. Tao verification was to work toward this dream and find a way to realize it. Achieving Tao was to realize one's dream. But how did the Green Lotus Emperor weapon and the heart of the demon god achieve Tao verification? I don't even know what dreams I have. The Green Lotus Emperor weapon and the heart of the demon god don't have consciousness at all, let alone dreams. My dream was realized just by reading Love Says? Isn't this nonsense? Li Yu was confused. The more he thought about it, the more he didn't understand. Achieving Tao in this world. It can't be that there's such a forceful method of achieving Tao through strength, right? Can the heavenly Tao be forcefully achieved? Chapter 71. As expected, I know too little. Is it because of my cultivation level? Even though Li Yu was able to utilize a great amount of energy, he was only at the beginning of his cultivation level. It was too difficult for him to figure out the pinnacle of strength in this world. Then, let's start with a specific cultivation technique. The system scanned through all the books in the Kangwu Academy. Li Yu had taken all the cultivation techniques and secret techniques in the academy, so it was too easy for him to find a cultivation technique to comprehend. In the 10,000 years of the Kangwu Academy, only the founder of the sect, Ancestor Kangwu, attained the supreme Tao? No one else attained the Tao since then? Why is that? Li Yu was stunned when he saw the introduction of the Kangwu Academy in the system. He'd originally intended to choose a cultivation technique that led directly to the supreme grand Tao to cultivate, but he noticed that besides founding Ancestor Dark Parasol, Only founding ancestor Green Lotus had attained the supreme Grand Tao in Dark Parasol Academy. Forget it, I'll just choose a cultivation technique that will allow me to become a Grandmaster. In any case, I'm just going to comprehend it and don't intend to cultivate it right away. Li Yu's situation was very special. He had to travel through the myriad of worlds, so he couldn't be careless with his cultivation technique. He had to be able to display formidable strength in the main world and similarly formidable in other worlds. If a cultivation technique was only useful in this world, then it would be useless in another world. Such a cultivation technique was utterly meaningless. The rules of study? This is a cultivation technique? Judging from its name, it's simply like the middle school student's code of conduct. The corners of Li Yu's mouth twitched when he saw the cultivation technique provided by the system, and he couldn't help but ridicule the name of the cultivation technique. Let's take a look first. Since he wanted to understand the path of cultivation in this world, he had to experience it himself. System, organize this cultivation technique and all the notes about the comprehension of this cultivation technique, and send them to my mind. Li Yu instructed the system after he used the Bodhi tree's ability to enlighten him. After that, countless pieces of information flowed into his mind. Even with the support of the Bodhi tree, Li Yu's perception had increased greatly, and the light of wisdom continued to bloom. However, he was still dizzy from this massive amount of information. After all the information had been transmitted, Li Yu closed his eyes and sat at the side of the table. His mind sank into his mind. With the support of the Bodhi tree, he began to comprehend this cultivation method. The path of body cultivation is to use the acquired to supplement the innate. We, the human race, are born with weak bodies. Our bodies are not as strong as those of the demon race. Only by strengthening the inside and nourishing the outside can we make up for our congenital deficiencies. This is the heaven-mending method. Body tempering technique, food nourishing technique, alchemy technique. True qi originates from qi and blood. His qi and blood surged like a spring. He channeled his qi and blood, condensed his true qi, and used his true qi to open his acupoints and communicate with the outside world. From there, the spirit will enter the body and be reborn. Information about the cultivation technique kept circulating in Li Yu's mind. With the support of the Bodhi tree, Li Yu analyzed and comprehended bit by bit. It's actually like this? This body tempering technique actually requires one to open 365 acupoints in the human body, guide the spirit into the body, and construct a complete cycle of true qi to be reborn? After comprehending the body tempering technique, Li Yu could not help but compare it with the Infinite Sutra. Li Yu found another problem with this comparison. This body tempering technique is not as profound as the Infinite Sutra, but it does not exhaust the body tempering technique to the extreme. Even so, all 365 acupoints in the body are open, and true qi flows through the entire body, becoming one. I can actually cultivate all the parts of the body. Li Yu was also very clear about the difference. Body tempering technique was only the foundation of cultivation in this world. The true power came from the Tao. Therefore, the cultivation of the body was very shallow. It was far inferior to the cultivation methods of the previous world, which developed the body to the extreme. The cultivation methods of the previous world, Sea of Reincarnation, Tao Palace, Four Extremities, and Dragon Transformation, all developed the body's potential and took the path of body tempering technique to the extreme. It was only at the Immortal Foundation stage that one began to cultivate the mind and comprehend the Tao. Sea of Reincarnation was the lower abdomen dantian, Tao Palace was the 5 qi in the chest, and the power of the 5 internal organs. Four Extremities was the 4 limbs, Dragon Transformation was the torso and spine. These were all body tempering techniques that developed the body's potential. It was only at the Immortal Foundation stage that one entered the spirit refinement stage. In terms of depth, The body tempering technique of this world is far inferior to the Infinite Sutra. Moreover, my body is the innate sage body, which is suitable for cultivating the Infinite Sutra. Therefore, it is better for me to cultivate the Infinite Sutra during the body tempering technique stage. During the body tempering technique stage, no matter what cultivation method one cultivated, the ultimate goal was to strengthen the body and strengthen oneself. Even if the world was different, the strength that originated from one's body would never weaken. For someone like Li Yu, who had traveled all over the world, a cultivation method that developed the body's potential to the extreme was obviously the most suitable. I can use the body tempering technique of this world as a reference, but I can only cultivate the Infinite Sutra. After making up his mind, Li Yu continued to comprehend the next cultivation method. After body tempering technique is investigating objects to attain knowledge. Investigating objects to attain knowledge is also psychic enlightenment. In essence, it is a method to mobilize and control the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. Investigating objects to attain knowledge is to investigate the principles of all things. Attaining knowledge is to understand the principles of all things. During cultivation, one must investigate the principles of all things and use them to communicate. Understanding the principles of all things and use them to comprehend the Tao. The three methods of psychic enlightenment are described by words, written by pen, and demonstrated by actions. So this is what psychic enlightenment means? Li Yu nodded to himself as he comprehended the "to know everything" chapter of the cultivation method. During the body tempering technique stage, a cultivator's strength came from their own body. At the psychic enlightenment stage, apart from their own strength, a cultivator could also mobilize the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. This was very impressive. With a punch, heaven and earth responded. In addition to one's own strength, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth also moved with this punch, gathering power into this punch. There was a limit to one's strength, but the power of heaven and earth was limitless. In this way, a cultivator at the psychic enlightenment stage could mobilize the spiritual chi of heaven and earth with a raise of their hand. It was not surprising that they had the power to move mountains and fill seas. But why does this method of borrowing the spiritual chi of heaven and earth feel so familiar? Li Yu frowned slightly, then laughed involuntarily. Wasn't this the same as him? After the mall space was opened, Li Yu could freely mobilize any power in the space. How similar was this to psychic enlightenment and borrowing the spiritual chi of heaven and earth? Psychic enlightenment was to mobilize the spiritual chi of heaven and earth and borrow the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. And Li Yu, as the master of the space, could directly mobilize the power of the space. Although there were differences in the specific methods, the essence was very similar. The mall space is the foundation, and it will only become stronger and stronger in the future. As the master of the space, I can freely mobilize the power of the space, but the way I use it is very simple and crude. It is far from being as delicate and exquisite as the cultivation techniques of this world. Li Yu raised his head and a bright smile appeared on his face. Looks like the cultivation techniques of this world are very useful to me as well. And this is only the cultivation techniques of the Kangwu Academy. If I can gather all the cultivation techniques of the various sects in this world, the way I can utilize the power of the space will be even more varied. Li Yu stood up and walked out of the door. He raised his head and looked at the distant horizon as he secretly made up his mind. Should I give some fortuitous encounters to others again? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.